Like to open the planning board meeting for February 26th, 2018. Our chair, George Barrett, is not present today, acting chair. Anybody recording at this time, please notify us. If not, whatever. First order of business. You guys have a chance to read over the minutes for February 12th in your packet?
Those look okay, other than I was present, I was tardy arriving last meeting.
Okay, we'll fix that.
And if it matters, there was a misspelling, Mrs. Wild is W-Y-L-D-E. On
Page 4.
page 4, Patty, W-Y-L-D-E.
Get that, Ken?
Yeah, got it.
Okay, everybody else happy with it? Entertain a motion.
Move to accept the minutes.
Second?
Second?
Been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. 3 ayes, abstain. Okay. Next order of business. Public hearings. We're gonna go over the articles again, Ken?
Excuse me?
Are we going over the articles again?
These are articles you have not gone over before, except for the drive-through restaurants, wanted confirmation on that. The rest are new articles that would be going on the special town meeting warrant if you recommend them.
We did kennels though, right? It's different animal kennels?
No, it's the same kennel.
Okay.
You also did drive-through restaurants as well, too. But one you haven't done yet is the Stretch Energy Code, which is part of the Green Communities Act. Close the door on that. And as part of the Green Communities Act, there are 5 criteria to allow the town to be able to access the money from the state. And so it's a significant program, and it's fairly fairly simple in the process, but complex in the actual implementation. So what we asked for was the DOER to come in and give us a layout of the program and let us know. So tonight we have Jim Berry from the Department of Energy Resources in the state to run through the Green Communities program for us and let us know what the stretch code adopting the stretch code means for the community.
Okay. Jim, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jim Berry. I live in Belchertown, Massachusetts. In 2010, I was a member of the Board of Selectmen in Belchertown, Massachusetts when the Green Communities Act was passed unanimously by both the State Senate and the State House of Representatives. And I heard that if you became a green community, you had access to grants that only green communities had access to, and you could spend that money on energy efficiency stuff like new boilers and old schools, which we had plenty of. So I volunteered to learn more about the Green Communities Program, to see if maybe it was something we should pursue or not pursue. The more I learned about it, the more I realized this is something Belchertown should pursue, and maybe I could help my neighboring towns of Palmer and Granby do it because I knew the selectmen down there. It turns out that they're going to hire 4 people in 4 different corners of the state to go to other towns and talk to them about it, and lo and behold, I got hired for the job. So I warn you about volunteering for extra service. Prior to being on the Board of Selectmen for 2 terms, I was on the Planning Board for 2 terms, so I'm very much aware of your roles and how sometimes things come across your desk that aren't really in your bailiwick, but sometimes they all are. This particular item, so the Green Communities Program, as was mentioned, there's 5 criteria that you have to meet to get a gold star on your forehead and therefore have access to funds. I can talk about all 5 in great detail, but I was asked to focus primarily on the one that's on the town meeting warrant, which relates to the stretch code, so that you folks have a better idea. Often it is the case in smaller towns like mine. It's members of the planning board or the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Health that are at the supermarket, and somebody says, well, what the heck are we talking about here? And so if I can help you understand a little bit more about what it is we're talking about, and what we're not talking about, it will help everybody. So again, if there's questions about any of the five, I'm happy to discuss them, but I was asked to focus on the fifth one. Before I go too much further, the main reason I get invited to talk to people is the same reason I got involved with it as a selectman, is I wanted the money. I knew if we jump through hoops, we could get some money. Everyone who becomes a green community gets a minimum of $125,000 to start with. Once you spend all that money, you're eligible to apply for more money in the future, up to $250,000 per year. Once you spend the previous one, you have to clean what's on your plate before you ask for more. Some of your neighbors have become green communities in the past, so Acushnet, Dartmouth, Lakeville, Mashpee, Middleborough have joined in different years and received different sums of money that they spent. On our website, there's a list of all the green communities and all the money that they received and the kinds of projects they spent the money on, if you want to see further detail on it. When we first started, we had no idea who would do this besides Cambridge and Amherst. It turns out that quite a few people over time have, the first year we did it, we had 35, and then the next year we had another 30, and the next year we had another. So after 7 or 8 years, we now have 210 municipalities from the west coast to the east coast, from north to south, have taken part in this program. So the short story to that is, it's not rocket science, it's not difficult to do, but it's also non-trivial. There's 5 steps you have to go through, and we help you with that process. There are 216 have voted for the stretch code. So if I look, there's 210 green communities, there's 216 stretch code communities, because often someone may get on the map by voting at town meeting, but don't yet do the other 4 things and apply for green communities. That's why this number is almost always a little bit higher than the green number. So, criteria 5 in the statute that created the Green Communities Act, and it provides for money only to municipalities. So this new program that was created for municipalities, for energy efficiency stuff in municipalities. There's 5 hoops you got to jump through. All 5 are defined in the legislation. And the 5th one says all new construction has to be energy efficient. And of course the first question is, how the heck are you going to do that? How are you going to make new construction energy efficient? It turns out that the only real way you can control what's being built is through the building code. And it also turns out that the building code has multiple sections of it, right? There's an electrical part of the building code, there's a plumbing part of the building code, there's a structural part of the building code, there's also an energy part of the building code, and it evolves over time. And in 2009, they knew that there was a new building code that was coming down the road. It was out in the future, and so they said, if you voluntarily adopt the next version of the building code earlier, which we know is more energy efficient, if you stretch into the future and do a little bit more energy work, then you will meet our criteria. It's not defined in the legislation to be part of the building code. The legislation says you have to guarantee it's going to be energy efficient, so we've always opened our ears to, if you have another way to prove that your town can guarantee that new construction is energy efficient, we're happy to listen to it. But in the 8 years, no one's been able to find another path that actually guarantees it. So we're still nudging people along the path of stretch code, but we're willing to listen to other advice if they have it. When it first came out, a lot of people had no idea what the heck is a stretch code. What are you talking about? How energy efficient? How are you going to make a house energy efficient? What are you talking about? Having been on the planning board, I knew quite a few members of the building community. The second year I was on the planning board, we had 100 new building permits in a year. And I said, holy mackerel. And the second year we had another 100 building permits, and I said, holy cow, what are we going to do about a school? So we were very much interested in tweaking the site plan approvals and zoning to see, if we're going to have all these new houses, maybe we better think about where they should be and how they should be. And so I got to know quite a few builders. And so we sent postcards to everyone who had pulled a building permit in the previous 2 years, filled a room like this with builders, and said, okay, here's what little I know about the stretch code. It's based on the Energy Star for Homes program, so I had a builder who had done Energy Star Homes come in and talk to people about it. They asked me a gazillion questions. We went back 2 months later with the answers, because I had no idea half the questions were, never mind what the answers were. So we were able to find out what is a stretch code, what is it not. And so some of the early misconceptions, some of the earlier concerns that people had, I like to talk about those early on, because chances are you've heard them already. If you heard about the stretch code, you've heard about, oh my God, it's... So one of the things that they first things they worried about was the stretch code is new and experimental. How are builders gonna know how to do this? And the answer is, well, actually, it's not new and experimental. The process is the same as the process to build Energy Star for homes. So you've heard of Energy Star refrigerators and dishwashers. There's an Energy Star for homes program that was already in existence. It's a federal government program that provides builders with money if they build more energy efficient homes. But there has to be a way to find, well, how do we know if your house is energy efficient and the one you're building isn't? So there's a process involved that they had invented over time. And believe it or not, the government decided to use an existing program rather than invent a brand new one, which shocked me out. So anyway, the stretch code is not new and experimental. It's based on something that has been known. At the time, about 10 or 12% of homes in Massachusetts were Energy Star for homes. Some builders were already leaning in that direction because they saw a niche for selling it. So there was some people out there doing it. Another concern that people had was the stretch code will require typed unhealthy homes. If we're going to do something to a new home to make sure we keep the heat in, aren't we going to make it too tight, too unhealthy? That was a fair concern, a fair worry. You folks probably aren't old enough to remember back in the 70s when the first oil embargo happened and you could not buy gasoline except Monday, Wednesday, and Friday if your license plate ended in an odd number, and Tuesday and Thursday if your license plate ended in an even number. There was some serious problems with getting oil into the country, getting gasoline from people who didn't like us. So there was a lot of effort gone on to reduce our energy consumption, reduce our energy usage. And one of the first things they thought about was not only the Energy Star for Homes program, I know, let's put plastic under the sheetrock. That'll keep the wind out and it'll keep it nice and cozy. Well, that was a bad idea. You put plastic under sheetrock, you can get mold and mildew and moisture. But that was 20 years ago. We have since learned how to make a house that is airtight, but not mold and mildew. New materials that were invented like Tyvek and those other kinds of materials. So it's possible today to build a house that's pretty much airtight, but not unhealthy. Another concern, especially out where I live, where we don't have natural gas pipelines out there, almost everybody heats with oil heat. And if we're talking about reducing the amount of energy a home is using, heating a house uses a lot of energy, and oil burners are not very efficient. You can get an 87% efficient oil burner, that's pretty good, which means 13% of your money is going up the chimney. So propane is easier because you can get 90, 93, 94% efficient, and therefore the house is more efficient. I'm going to show you in a couple slides how we measure the efficiency of the house. But there was some concern that, are we going to have to stop building oil heated homes? The answer is no. It's more difficult to get a total holistic view of the house being energy efficient with oil, but it's not impossible. Another concern that we had out west, where we don't have public sewers, where we have just private septic systems, there's a thing in Massachusetts called Title V that says if you sell your house, you have to make sure that your septic system is up to the latest code, meets Title V, and if it doesn't, you've got to bring it up to code before you can sell it. I can't give you a discount on the house in the hope that you do it later. It's got to be done before we can pass papers. So there's many people concerned that if we pass a stretch code in our town, and we say new houses are going to be energy efficient, are you going to make us take the old house and bring it up to code also? The answer is no. It's never been that case. There was some concern about it, some valid concern about it, but it has never been the case. In fact, the most recent version of the stretch code explicitly defines its applicability to new residential construction. So existing residential construction, with an addition on, or renovation, or repair, you knock a hole in the wall to put a window in, you just follow the standard building code. Stretch code or not has nothing to do with your existing homes. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is, in the beginning there were some strange concerns, or some legitimate concerns. We tried to answer those concerns. 8 or 9 years ago, the stretch code was a stretch because it was based on a future version of the building code that was quite a bit of a difference from the existing building code. And so 8 or 9 years ago, the stretch code was a stretch compared to the International Energy Code Conference of 2009. That's what it was being compared to. But in July of 2014, the new standard building code, which evolves every 3 years, the new standard building code, the IECC 2012, went into effect in 2014, and that raised the requirements for insulation in the walls, it raised the requirements for insulation in the ceilings, it raised the requirements for quality of windows, it raised the requirements for air tightness. It required that every house had a continuous air sealing around the whole perimeter of the whole house. which was similar to what the stretch code had said and scared the bejeepers out of people. But now the standard building code required it. So in your town, any new house that has been built since July 1 of 2014 has had to do these kinds of efforts that are almost the same as the stretch code. Not exactly, I'm going to show you what the differences are in a minute, but almost identical in terms of the insulation, windows, air tightness. So we say that in 2014, the base code almost caught up with the stretch code. But in January 2017, a little over a year ago, both the standard building code and the stretch code evolved, and now there's almost no difference between the two at all. And I'm going to show you some real world examples. The basic difference between, if your town passes the stretch code, then all houses, all new houses built in the town have to go through this home energy rating services system, like the Energy Star system, which means you have to have another subcontractor. So the builder has to have a plumbing subcontractor, an electrical subcontractor. Now the builder has to have an energy subcontractor. One more person involved to help design the house, make sure it will be energy efficient, to do inspections while it's being built, and then to do final testing on the house to make sure it is energy efficient. And this person is going to cost more money. It's between $1,600 and $3,000 sometimes to do this extra work to meet the stretch code. But the Mass Save program, I'm sure you've all had a Mass Save, no cost energy assessment at your own home. You can do it every two years. They come into your house and they give you suggestions how to make your own home energy efficient. The Mass Save program also has a Mass Save for New Residential Construction program where they offer $1,300 to $1,700 rebates for making home energy efficient, whether you're a stretch code town or not. I mean, you could get that today if you built energy efficient homes in your town, but it almost offsets all of the extra costs of the stretch code. Again, just to highlight what the stretch code covers and doesn't cover, it only talks about the energy pieces of the construction, so insulation, doors, windows, mechanical equipment, lighting, building tightness, duct tightness, renewables. If you put solar panels on the roof, you get points for it. It's not required, but you do get points for it. Oh, I went the wrong way. So this is why you might want to look at the house holistically, even if you follow the prescriptive path. So the standard building code has two paths. It has a prescriptive path and a performance path. The prescriptive path says follow a prescription. It's like a doctor's prescription. You do R13 in the walls, R33 in the ceilings, follow the prescription, it's fine. The performance path says we're going to look at the whole house as a whole. We're going to look at how it measures, what kind of windows we are compared to what kind of insulation we've got. We're going to look at it holistically, and we're going to test the performance and give it a score and see if you get a pass-fail on the score. So you might want to test performance because just following the prescription might not mean it's a great job. Right? If you hired my son home from college for the summer and he's doing some insulation, stapling up some pink stuff with a staple gun, that won't cut it anymore in the stretch code. You need someone who's paying real close attention, not out all night with his friends, and make sure the insulation is done really well. And this HERS rater is going to come out and inspect it. So this HERS rater that's involved in the program is involved in three phases of the project. One is right from the beginning, right with the design of the house. So you're going to do the builder's going to get a plumbing subcontractor, an electrical subcontractor, and an energy subcontractor. He's going to sit down with the energy subcontractors and he's going to say, well, how big a house are you going to build? 2,000 square feet. 1 story or 2 story? 2 stories. What kind of windows are you using? Well, we're using Anderson, blah, 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 blah. What kinds? Put all this information into the computer about the house you're building, and the computer is comparing it to the 2006 requirements and starts measuring how much better is your home that you're building, better than what you would have had to do in 2006. And this thermometer starts dropping. So over there on the right-hand side, pointer here, I think. On the right-hand side is what I call the thermometer. It measures how efficient a building is compared to the standard house, the base house, the model house. So the standard new home, they give a score of 100. And my mother-in-law's house is up here someplace because she doesn't have good insulation in the attic, and she won't listen to me when I say, get the Mass Save program and get some insulation for crying out loud. She said, that's fine, Jimmy, it's fine. Okay. So the higher the number, the less efficient it is. A 100 is if you built it based on the 2006 requirements. So everything you do to make it better than the 2006 home, the thermometer starts dropping and you're trying to get down to a score. So when we say HERS 55, it's really 45% more efficient than the previous home. So you're gonna do a computer modeling before you even start, so you know what kind of a house you're gonna build. The HERS inspector's gonna come out and do some inspections. You're gonna look at the house before the sheetrock goes up. They're gonna do blower door tests when they're all done. So when we first, that blower door test, what they do is they close the doors and windows, they put this fan on, they put the house under pressure, and they start measuring how much air is going out that fan. And if there's a lot of air going out the fan, it means there must be leaks somewhere. So then you gotta find them and fix them. When we first brought this out in 2009, 2010, that was quite a change. And the builder said, how am I gonna find those leaks? I suggested you get some stick of incense and light it and blow it out and see where the smoke is going. But there was a builder in the room one night that said he could hear it. He can hear a whistle. And they went and they found the whistle and they cocked it up there and they passed it. This was pretty unusual in 2009, 2010. It was a stretch. People were freaked out about it. But in 2014, every new home has to have a blower door test now. So it's not unusual for the builders. They have to hire someone anyway to do this kind of work. It's just that they don't, in a non-stretch code, you don't need the person to get involved in the computer modeling or the inspection. But you still have to have somebody do the final inspection. So I'd like to quickly talk a little bit about numbers, dollars, and cents, because people always say, what's this really going to cost? And you say it doesn't cost much, I don't believe it. Okay, so the Baker administration says any new regulations has to have a cost-benefit analysis done. This is kind of a new regulation because the building code did evolve, it did change. We did a new stretch code. So this is a sample home, 2,500 square feet in the Worcester area, not the Boston area. We wanted to go someplace where the numbers aren't too crazy. This is a home that's going to be built with natural gas. The standard house, without the stretch code requirements, was already getting a score of 66. It was already pretty energy efficient. They were doing good work there already. But to meet the stretch code, they had to get down to 55. So this is the cost and benefits page, summary page of what it was going to take. And this next page shows us the detail of those costs. So again, it's 2,500 square feet. It's natural gas. These are the features of the house. This is what you had to do just for the standard building code. And these are the changes we made to make it meet the stretch code. So the first extra cost is that HERS person to be involved. You have to hire that person anyway to do the blower door test, but to be involved in the whole process, an extra $500. To get that thermometer to come down a little bit, they use slightly better windows. They use slightly better U-value windows, so that was another $500 extra to build a stretch code home. The heating system, they went from a 92% gas furnace to a 96% gas furnace. That's $300. Now, this extra cost doesn't take into consideration the fact that you don't need a masonry chimney with this kind of thing. But that's another conversation. The cooling system, they made a slightly better cooling system. They spent more money. Domestic hot water, we spend more money on heating up hot water just to take a shower in. But in order to get a really good, efficient hot water system, they spent $800. So the whole extra costs here were $2,600 to make this home that the builder was going to build anyway, a little bit better, so they could meet the stretch code. Was $2,000. Now notice that we did not change the lighting, we did not change the foundations, insulation, we did not change the floor insulation. So the builder already was doing good insulation, good wall insulation, good ceilings. The air infiltration was already pretty airtight. 3 air changes per hour means the whole house was getting a fresh set of air every 3 hours when it was under pressure. That's a pretty low number. But notice we didn't have to make it more airtight. This is the standard that the builder was building already. So again, there's some extra things we did do to get the number down, added up to $2,600. And I go back to this front page, there's the $2,600 extra cost to the builder to meet the stretch code. But the benefits included $1,600 from the Mass Save program. So it's a net cost of about $1,000. So if you're going to take that $1,000 and add it to the cost of the house, instead of it being $325,000 house, it's $326,000 house. You're going to pay another $77 a year in the mortgage payment. But you're saving $200 a year in energy bills because it's more energy efficient, which means you have a positive cash flow year after year after year. That's a sample of the natural gas. We also did one for propane, which has almost the same numbers because propane efficiency and natural gas is almost identical. But I did do one for oil because some folks still want to use oil. And I'm going to point out to you that doing one in oil is going to cost an extra $4,000 in the stretch code community because of that furnace. I'm gonna go right to page 2 and show you where that comes from. So again, we spent more money on the HERS Raider, we spent more money on windows, but the heating system, the standard was 83% oil furnace. They were able to find one at 96% efficient, but it was $1,800. But if you want to do that, you could still do that because you're still going to get a mass save rebate. It's going to cost you $2,500 more, which means another $200 a year in your mortgage, but you're saving almost $700 a year in oil because you went from a pretty good oil heating system to a really, really good oil heating system. So even if you decide to stay with oil, it can be done. The upfront costs look a little bit bad, but the annual cash flow, you're still saving more money per year than you're spending per year. You got positive cash flow year after year after year. That's how I calculate the incentives. There is a commercial code part of the stretch code. I don't know if you folks do a lot of commercial building in town.
We do some.
So this new stretch code only impacts new commercial building over 100,000 square feet, which is a pretty big building, or labs or supermarkets that have 40,000 square feet. Additions, renovations, and repairs are exempt. There's some documentation needed for residential stretch code and commercial stretch code. There's the map again. I've got my eye on the clock, I'm trying not to go too long. So the summary is, the stretch code is no longer much of a stretch because the base code basically caught up to it. You do need to have a HERS Raider involved. It costs a little bit more money. The base code also requires a HERS Raider involved. It costs more money. The extra cost for the extra involvement and some extra equipment is fairly well offset by the mass save rebate. Not 100%, but pretty much offset. Additions, renovations, and repairs to existing buildings, existing residential homes, existing commercial homes are exempt from the stretch code. And I'll pause for questions.
Any questions from the board?
What is the availability of these HERS Raiders?
Sorry?
Is there enough inventory of the HERS Raiders out there to meet the demand?
Yeah, great question. When we first started, there probably wasn't, because they existed to do the Energy Star for homes, and there wasn't, like I said, 10 or 12% of those. But if I show you this map again, you'll see in the ensuing years there have been a lot more HERS Raiders out east, out west, I would say. In Northampton and Pittsfield, there's I think they doubled the number of HERS Raiders in their local offices. I don't know where I am here. I don't know where your local HERS people are. But in general, in the state, there have been far more HERS Raiders hired, certified, than there were 8 years ago. I've been told that it's not much of a problem. I've also been told that it depends who you get. So just like a builder's going to want to find a good plumbing subcontractor, he's going to want to find a good HERS subcontractor. Not all of them are great. Maybe not all of them are available all the time.
Are they mechanical engineers?
No. So they're certified through ResNet, some federal program, training only on energy efficiency stuff, only on computer modeling stuff, on inspections. They're not mechanical engineers, no. They're focused primarily on energy usage in residential buildings. These people don't do commercial buildings, they only do residential buildings.
And they could be from any previous background.
They could be, yep. So some building inspectors have become HERS Raiders, but they can't be a HERS Raider in the town of which they're, of course, that wouldn't be right. Some older folks getting out of the construction business says, you know what, this is going to be a great retirement job for me. There's a certification process. It's not something you can go on one Saturday and get a certificate. I was told that in the first 2 years you have your license, every 10th home that you do, they send someone else to do it, to check to see how you're doing. So it's, again, based on the fact that it was a federal program that's been going on for quite a few years, I've pretty much got this under control. You can go on the web and go to ResNet or search for HERS Raiders and you'll get a list of all the local ones. Each HERS Raider has to work under the auspices of a HERS provider. That's a group of people that it's a company that has 2 or 3 or 4 HERS Raiders working for them, and they all report to ResNet.
So the contractor can be a conflict of interest for the contractor to provide the HERS Raider. They have to be third party to the builder.
Yeah.
If the town adopts the residential aspect of this, they have to adopt the commercial aspect?
Yes, sir.
So they come as a package.
Now, I haven't heard much complaints at all about the commercial package, primarily because when you talk about buildings those sizes, most of them are, buildings full of lights, and if you put LED lights in there, you pretty much hit your numbers without thinking about it.
So our cultivators probably aren't gonna make it. Our cultivators probably aren't gonna make it, right?
We're in the process of marijuana bill
Oh,
facilities. So
about 100,000 square feet?
Western part of the state, you guys grow yours outdoors, we want to do ours indoors.
Actually,
Cultivating marijuana. I'm not
actually, we had a
that old.
gentleman here from New Bedford, and they do have 100,000 square feet
Fall River.
cultivation, Fall River, yeah. But how, so residential meaning single-family residential or multifamily residential?
So it's, 4 stories or less residential, single or multifamily. If you did a multifamily unit, each unit has to meet the HERS score. So they would test they would do the air sealing of each unit, they would make sure yeah.
So I think the town is debating a 174
Yep.
Building complex, 4 stories.
Yep.
If we were to adopt this, that would impact that.
It might, depending on what kind of grants you're going for,
Mhm.
they may have to meet it anyway. So
Okay.
some of the state grants, for instance, MSB, it's the school build, MSBC or BA? MSBA. To get their funding, if you're gonna do a new school, whether in a stretch code town or not, you have to build to the stretch code, otherwise they won't give you the money. So there's some state programs where you've gotta, if you want the money, you've gotta build it well anyway.
Do you know if 40B is a required application for the stretch code?
It's not exempt from the stretch code.
It's,
So someone could not say, well, I'm gonna build 40B and I have to worry about, I don't, no.
okay.
And it's not waivable. Like, you know, you folk can waive some aspects of 40B.
Yeah, just the local regulations can be waived,
Right, yeah. that's-
not the state, which is the building code.
No,
Right.
that was a hot topic in, what was it, Norfolk? Because they had a lot of 40Bs going on there.
I got, one other question I have is, how will this impact our local inspectional services?
Yep, fair question.
Is the building inspector now gonna be tasked with additional responsibilities and need to up their manpower?
Actually not. So, in the beginning, it was a lot of building inspectors, what the heck, what are you doing to me? How am I gonna, I have to go out there and babysit this guy?
Yeah.
The answer is no, he's a certified inspector. He does all the work relative to energy. So theoretically, the building inspector would not have to inspect insulation if he didn't want to. Now, the building inspectors I know said, you know, I'm gonna go out there and do what I usually do anyway, and I'm gonna be out there when this guy's there to see if he's doing his job right, but there's no additional work. The paperwork involved is, before you give him a building permit, the builder gives him the document falls out of the computer, it says, here's the kind of house I'm building. So, here's the house I plan on building, the building inspector says, okay, here's a building permit. Then the first person does the inspection, and gets another document at the end certifying it, he's inspected. They really did use these kind of windows, they really did use this kind of a heating system. Get another piece of paper for the building inspector with that HERS score on it, and then the building inspector can give the certificate of occupancy. So, they don't have to do more work, some choose to be involved with it more than others, but it's not additional work on their part.
But if a homeowner contractor is building a residential home,
Yep.
and they try to bypass those fundamental requirements of the furnace, of the insulation, and that's picked up in inspectional services, they're, at their own cost, are going to have to go remediate that to bring it into stretch code?
So if you don't pass the final electrical inspection, you don't get a C of O. If you don't pass the final plumbing inspection, you don't get a C of O. If you don't pass the final energy inspection, you don't get a C of O. So if a builder's gonna need to find someone who's a good HERS rater is gonna do it. The builder's gotta find a good insulation guy to do the insulation well.
So this is a qualifying factor for a certificate of occupancy?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So some builders early on have the HERS inspector out there multiple times during the building, because you don't wanna fail it once the house is painted.
Right.
You got paint on the sheet rock, what are you gonna do about sealing that window now? Right? So they often do they'll do a preliminary blower door test right after the sheet rock goes up, and then look to see if it's gonna pass. But they need that, for the current building code also, they need to have the 3 air changes per hour and blower door test as of July 14th, so again, in 2010, this was a big deal. Today, it's less of a deal.
Is there any restriction on the use of the grant money that the town will get?
Yeah, so, that's fair. So when you become the green committee, we say congratulations, you made it, and based on the math, $125,000 per town, and then there's $1 per head, so bigger cities get more money than small cities. I think, did they give you an estimate on what you were gonna make? 140 maybe? I don't know how big a town you are, sorry. Didn't do all my homework. Oh, usually it's on this page. You can spend on energy efficiency, energy efficiency, energy efficiency, energy efficiency, and/or renewable energy in municipal buildings. So what most towns do is schools, heating systems, ventilation systems, control systems in the schools, because that's often their biggest energy usage. Town halls are often big. We've paid for insulation in fire departments. We've paid for new garage doors in DPWs. So it's energy efficiency, energy efficiency, energy efficiency is our focus. You're allowed to spend any part of the first grant on renewables if you wish. So some towns put up solar PV on some of their buildings as a pilot program, as a demonstration, so people aren't afraid of solar. You know, some people still are afraid of solar. So I had one small town that had just 3 buildings. They had these great big Modine heaters in the corners of the rooms, you know, very big, huge, a lot of. Remove all 3 Modine heaters, replace them with air source heat pumps, and put solar panels on the DPW garage, and now the heat and electricity for those 3 buildings are completely paid for with the grant. They don't have it. Subsequent grants are also spent on energy efficiency projects, but not renewables. Some towns have said, I had a small town that said, we have you shut me up whenever you want, but I could go on all night about it. So one small town said, Worcester, when we first started, and the price difference for stretch code was very large, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 was a guess. We didn't know because nobody had done it yet. They said, we may have trouble with moderate and low-income housing. Can we use some of our grant to reimburse a builder if in fact it costs a crap load more money to build this stretch code? And we said, yeah, if you administer it, okay, we don't want to be writing checks to everybody. But so they set aside some of their grant money to do that, and they ended up not giving any of it away. The builders didn't need it, didn't want it, didn't ask for it. So they repurposed that money and said, how about if we give it to buildings, homes, they get the mass save energy audit, and as you know, if you get a mass save audit, and they tell you you need more insulation, they'll pay up to 75% of that insulation, up to $2,000. And they said, so the town of Chesterfield said, we still have some folks that can't come up with the difference. Can we give them some of that? He said, okay, you can take some of your money. So it's supposed to be for municipal use, but we said, okay, you can use some of your money. And so in Chester, I always get Chester and Chesterfield mixed up. Chesterfield helped, I think, 19 senior citizens with things like insulation and storm doors out of the green community. The town of Wendell used some money to hire someone to go door to door and explain to people what the Mass Save program was and try to get them involved with it. So the short story is you're supposed to spend it on municipal energy savings, thus you're saving taxpayer money. So instead of spending a lot of money on oil heat, you're spending less money on oil heat, therefore that money can go for salt or sand or a school teacher. You're not going to save enough money to lower anybody's tax rate. Let's be real clear about that. We're not talking about gazillions of dollars, right? But the money that raises every year in the town budget, well, at least the energy bill is going to drop, and it's going to go up much lower because you're using much less energy.
Could we use it to bring natural gas to sections of town that don't have it?
So one town had a gas pipeline running in the street and an old oil burner in the cellar, and we paid to get the line from the street into the house, into the town hall, and the natural gas boiler to do it. We did not pay to put the pipe from the corner to the building, but the pipe was already going through near the building, so we did pay for that. But no, huge gas pipelines probably not.
Okay.
That's a guess. It'd be hard to justify.
Very good. Sounds like you've been working hard at this. So.
You know, it's, again, as a selectman, I went into this pretty skeptical, because I've seen a lot of programs coming from Boston, you know, a lot of them out west, right, Boston didn't even know where we are, never mind, if there's any programs designed for it. this one actually works. I mean, we've got towns that have gotten a bunch of money and done great things with it.
Thank you. Ken, are we gonna have a handout or something to, if we went along with this, put it in the warrant?
Yeah, it'd be pretty standard wording that you'd be adopting the
I have
stretch
sample
energy
language
code.
I can send you.
Okay, because I think we probably need something a little bit more easier to digest to the normal person, also the voter.
Absolutely. So we have, I have a whole variety of handouts. The one a lot of towns have, it's a two-sided piece of paper. The first side is a bunch of English that explains what it is, what it's not. And the flip side is the map.
Yeah.
And the, what your neighbors are doing for money and what it can be used for. And
Yeah.
people often bring that to town meetings, so when you're sitting there waiting for the argument about the school that we've had 3 years in a row, took you over, that's what we're reading.
I think that'll be pretty helpful, because,
Yeah.
you know, they'll understand.
Want to hear from the public?
Any comments from the public?
I thought it was a very good presentation.
Okay, so this gentleman will be a spokesman for you, pushing your product out there.
I want to also mention Eric Arbeen from Serped, who's in the audience. He'll be helping us out in this, in the Green Communities Program and adoption as well.
We received a grant on behalf of the town to help you fulfill some of these criteria, so we can work with Ken and the folks here to help you get a plan in place to decide which projects you want to do. That's all part of the other criteria, so.
Can't hear the gentleman.
So the Serped was, received a grant to help you folks. One of the things we found early on was cities and towns that had sustainability director on the payroll. What? You got somebody like that on the payroll? Or maybe a town planner would end up doing a lot of this work. A lot of small towns had nobody to do this work. So we provided money to Serped and other regional planning agencies. We offer them money so they can spend some time helping you all get the paperwork done to apply for the grant. Administer the grant, do some of the paperwork following up. So you've got some no cost to you help that we are funding through them.
So that'll make your job easier, Ken.
That's right.
One quick question.
Could you come up to the mic and your name for the record, please?
My name is Jim Manese. The funding of the grant,
Oh,
is that state-sponsored, or is that through the Mass Save program, which is basically our electric and gas bills offset? So will that money dry up, or is that going to be continuing down the road, or will the legislature say,
So the question,
well, we don't have the money this year, sorry?
so the question is related to what's the source of the funding and how's it likely is it to last into the future? So the legislation that created the Green Communities Act that did a whole bunch of stuff, including creating the Green Communities Division, specifically says that our funding comes from the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. What the heck is that? RGGI, RGGI. Massachusetts and 8 other states have a consortium whereby anyone who produces electricity and sells it into our area, they have to pay for the stuff they put in the air.
Right.
And our proceeds from that, about 80% of our proceeds from the regional greenhouse gas initiatives goes to the Mass Save program, and $20 million a year comes to our program. That means if the governor decides he needs more money for state police, he can't just take it from our budget and move it over there. He'd have to go to the legislature and get the law changed to say that our funding is going to come from someplace else first. When there was new government came in, we said, you know, what's it going to be like? What's the new guy going to do? Is it going to keep it going? Actually, the new guy likes it and doubled our money. So that's a good thing. But what's going to happen 5 years from now, I couldn't tell you.
But it's basically funded through the electric companies.
Yeah, you and I are paying for it. If
Right.
any of us
That's right.
pays an electric bill is putting money into the bucket, and if you're not a green community, you're not getting money out of the bucket. So you might.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else in the audience like to at this time? They can, want to need a recommendation on this?
Yeah, do you want to recommend it to town meeting?
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I'd like to move that we recommend the presentation to town meeting.
Adoption of the stretch code.
Do I hear a second? Second by John Cronin. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a safe trip back to
Wherever I get it.
Belchertown.
What's the
West, I'm
one?
going west.
Okay, next on the agenda, animal kennels, we're all set, right?
Right. What I wanted to do on the drive-through restaurants, you had included a criteria in the special permit that it would be state highways and arterials, roads that are classified in accordance with the state DOT regulations. And what I've done in the packet is included a map. It looks like this. It comes from the state website that identifies those roads that are arterials, interstates, and major collectors, all other roads being local roads. I'm recommending that you consider the arterials and collector roads, major collectors, as roads that would be part of this criteria where they would not have direct access onto those roads.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is, there's no drive-throughs or no Burger Kings scheduled for 495 or 95, 195.
That too. It would be the red and the green roads
Yep.
that are shown on here, and the red being the interstates.
Yep.
And so obviously those don't get
And the Green Road is what, 28?
28.6,
Yeah.
some of the major routes within the town, the busiest roads.
So, just to recap, we're saying no direct discharge,
No direct,
state roads or major arterial roads. So
That's correct.
if- Again, we'll just use the Wendy scenario at the new plaza. As long as it's discharging into the parking lot and then is coming to a
a controlled intersection,
controlled intersection, it can be right off of these roads.
correct. That's the criteria that you had considered.
And just to find a controlled intersection, is that will not be just a yield sign. This is actually a functioning intersecting.
With a signal or signage that, stop sign signals egress control.
Was that what we wanted? I don't know if we wanted a stop sign. Stop sign is still too much discretion of the driver pulling out into these major
Well, the
ways.
signage and the lighting is dependent on the warrant, the number of vehicles that are traveling through, and the state allowances for that type of control on the intersection. So we could have a situation, and we do, where just a simple stop sign controls the intersection with the,
Is there a case where a stop sign would be sufficient pulling onto the Cranberry Highway?
Well, here we go again. How do we control the intersection? Now you're talking the state's jurisdiction. Am I right on that, Ken?
that's right.
You know, you can't tell a state, hey, I want a light in front of the old Wareham Pharmacy, good example. I'm gonna put a Burger King there, so I need a light there now. State's gonna tell you, go pound sand, basically, because they don't see it warranted, because they make that jurisdiction. That's their highway, not ours.
But what I'm
They control it.
saying is, just look at the existing drive-throughs on the Cranberry Highway. Is there a stop sign coming out of KFC onto the Cranberry Highway? You know, we considering that an actual controlled intersection, just because it's a stop sign?
No, because that has direct access then onto the highway. The criteria you have is that it does not direct discharge onto a state highway or arterial or collector road, and instead would have access through a controlled intersection.
So that, I think then a good example would be if you took, I know this is not banks we're talking about, but if you look at Eastern Bank in the Cranberry Plaza, it discharges into the parking lot, and then comes to a controlled intersection, either right or left, out of Cranberry Plaza.
Correct.
If you take the Rockland Trust in West Wareham, it comes to a stop sign, it discharges onto its own property, then comes to a stop sign, then it takes a left onto Tow Road, and then comes to a controlled intersection. So that would be an acceptable circumstance.
It could be.
What would disqualify it?
If it didn't have the controlled, go through the controlled intersection.
If it's in its own parking lot, so they put the building, what do you call it, a Wendy's? They put a Wendy's inside the plaza area. You go around the building and get your food, and you come out, you're still in the parking lot. You have to come to a certain end of the parking lot and turn one way or the other to get to the intersection to go out on the highway. What's wrong with that?
Nothing, that's what we're saying is okay.
Right. So if you go down the other end of Wareham, you got a McDonald's, you drive out of the drive-through and you drive right to the end of it and you get on the highway. You go down the other end of town to the Wendy's, you go through the drive-through, you drive so many feet, you're at the highway, you can only go right. Dunkin' Donuts, the center of town, they're backed up all the way down the street through the intersection. So why are we concerning ourselves honestly, people, with what's inside a private parking lot? If you're in a private parking lot, let them control their own traffic. If they're going out onto the highway, then we have something to worry about.
Right, well, that's the point. That's exactly the point that we're,
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I missed something, so sorry.
Okay, I think the drawing, the illustration will help folks understand where the restricted areas are going to be.
exactly,
Takes all the guesswork out of what we're
that's right,
I
what
guess
you're
defining as
suggesting.
approved zones. This will be available at the town meeting?
Yeah, we'll make this available at town meeting,
That map with the green line.
right.
It's not a street in the town you can put a drive-through on, it has to be in a private parking lot. That map that you're showing right there with the green lines, there's not a street in town you can that you can come to. So it's all private is what we're looking for.
That's right.
Okay. That'll be pretty clear to town meeting. You can't put any in there on any street, has to be on a private piece of property. Okay,
All right,
let's adopt that then.
Can you put help to identify the green ways?
the roads, yeah, we'll label the roads for town meeting to make it clear.
But there's a narrative explanation to this as well, right? So they understand we're not just restricting these roads, we're just setting the condition to create a discharge within the property.
That's right,
The narrative will be with them, with that as well in the town meeting.
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the criteria that you adopted
Yeah.
or recommended be part of the criteria for that. So animal kennels, you had actually okayed as as the state definition.
Unregistered vehicles, boats, and trailers.
Yeah, now, what I did was reorganize the articles as the definitions based on the article of the zoning bylaw in which the recommendation was being made. So this came from the building commissioner who has been dealing with these issues and was trying to get some clarity to help in the process of dealing with day-to-day on on bylaw issues. So what I've done is taken what he had recommended and organized it into these articles that you have in your packet. The first one we can take is the Article 5, which is the supplemental regulations, which includes outdoor storage and unregistered vehicle, boat, or trailer. So the outdoor storage, section 535 would be changed to read, outdoor storage, which includes storage of construction, manufacturing, service, wholesale equipment, materials, junk, or heavy motorized equipment of any type shall be completely enclosed by a solid fence or wall, not less than 8 feet nor more than 10 feet in height. Fences or walls used for screening of such materials or junk shall be set back from the property lines equal to the required setback for the applicable zoning district.
I think we need a little bit more clarity on that one from the
So
building
that,
department.
so that outdoor storage one there, Mr. Chairman, may I ask is, so those are the Connex boxes, the construction Connex boxes, and they only have to be set back, if your setback is 25 feet or 30 feet, that's all they have to be, as long as they're fenced in or treed in, or in the case on my street, just put in the woods 50 or 60 feet. That's all you have to do.
This wouldn't be just Connex boxes, this would be,
Your old Model A you're restoring, your boat and trailer.
How many boats can you have on your property?
no, that's the next definition, 530, unregistered vehicle, boat, or trailer. No person or property owner shall have or allow more than one unregistered vehicle, vessel, trailer, or parts thereof ungaraged on any premises at any time unless so authorized in writing by the Board of Selectmen. In no event shall any such vehicle, vessel, trailer, or parts thereof be stored or located in the front yard of any premises within the town. A valid business certificate for sales of such equipment shall suffice as written permission from the Board of Selectmen.
So unless you're a licensed dealership.
Right. You're allowed to display. And you receive a license from the Board of Selectmen for that purpose. That would be the one exemption.
So if you're a used car dealership and you've got 15 unoperating vehicles not registered, then your claim is, I'm selling the parts off of them as part of my dealership?
I'm not sure how that would play out.
No person, property owner shall have or allow more than one unregistered vehicle, vessel, trailer, or parts thereof, ungaraged, on the premises at any one time, as so authorized in writing with the Board of Selectmen.
I did that, that'll help.
If they're registered, you can have as many as you want. That's the way, that's the way it reads. Because it always read that you could have one unregistered. There was no problem, John.
Yeah, I was being facetious. I have some that have 5 and 6 boats on their property, and then I have Connex boxes up the kazoo in the woods, and I was just curious how many you can get away with. Oh, I like those, Ken.
If you like them, thank the building commissioner.
Thank you.
So unregistered boat trailers, outdoor storage, you guys are ready to fly with those, the way they're written. Ken's draft. Sure.
One, do you have a copy of the
You have to use the,
zoning bylaw changes?
Sorry, the
Yeah, we can
gentleman's
read.
gotta sit down before he starts to talk.
he needs you to speak into the microphone so we can get on record.
Do
Please.
you have a copy of all the zoning bylaw changes you're gonna, be proposing? I was trying to find them online and they're not online. right? I figured you could upload them to the website, the planning board, the planning website, and that way you could look at them, would be a little more informed.
We can do that. We don't typically do that for
I know, but it'd just be,
bylaws. But I think that makes a lot
it'd
of
be good for
sense.
the citizenry so we could look at that stuff. Now, on the boats, not all boats need to be registered by law. I mean, I think it's anything under, was it 13 and a half feet? And if you don't have a motor on it, you don't have to register it? Sailboats, I mean, so what's up with that? I mean, I'm not being facetious or anything, I'm just asking a question. You got a canoe, you got a kayak, you got a sailboat, you got one boat you register. They don't all have to be registered by law.
Would, in that
Right.
condition would be they would be ungaraged?
Well, why not? Was it polypropylene or something, right?
Our building inspector can assist you on this one, I think, Mr. Moniz.
Good evening. Wareham Building Commissioner Dave Requena. So if you have a boat on your property, if it's on a trailer, that trailer is required to be registered. So if you have, it's really intended for lots with a lot of boats on trailers. I mean, it's not really intended for little John boats or kayaks or things like that.
So it's specifically for trailerable
Cars and
boats,
trailerable boats,
boats on trailers.
things in
Not
excess.
just boats or water vessels.
Right.
Well, okay, so do we need to clarify this is of legal size for registration and trailable?
That's probably a good idea, because I mean, there are some lots in town that have boats that should be on trailers, that are not on trailers, that are over that length.
You
That
don't have
would,
to register a sailboat.
that would be required to be
There's no more.
registered.
So the presumption would be there'd be a trailer there, but we could have 2 sailboats in the yard on stilts, unregistered.
Right,
In that case there, we would like to reduce that to 1.
right.
Well, when you say that, you can have 2 power boats on stilts in your yard. I got a 35-footer, and I got a 28-footer. I don't trailer them, the guy drops them off at the end of the season, puts them on stanchions, so I'm in violation, right? The way this bylaw will be written.
Well, if the boat's required to be registered and is unregistered, then I would say yes.
Then you're right, you're 1 unregistered.
You're allowed 1 unregistered vessel, car, boat, trailer, or vessel.
But not 1 of each.
Correct. Ungaraged on a property. So if you have a boat indoors, inside your garage or inside a shed, enclosed, that's fine. If you have 1 inside, 1 outside, you're okay. Again, this is really intended for some of the properties that have multiple boats. I mean, we have some in town that have 10, 12, or more.
I was just making a point that not all boats are required to be registered. So if you want to address that issue, you have to somehow come up with a definition which is going to work to be able to enforce it. You follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely, it's a good point.
And if I could regress for one moment, you were talking about the drive-throughs. I noticed there's a lot of vehicles going into the exit of the Aldi's AutoZone parking lot. It comes out to 28. They're going into that where it says, do not enter, because either the median on the state highway doesn't come down far enough, or the island coming out isn't extended further enough so that vehicles can easily enter in there. So I would see an increase of traffic going into that. The other day I saw 3 in a row go there. Boom, 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 across the state highway. So those are things to consider when we start putting more and more businesses which will attract a heavier traffic. It's not that it's a bad thing, it just has to be planned properly.
I think one of the good things about the special permit is that it gives the board a chance to look at details like that
And address it.
and address it at the time that the application is made for the project.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry, are we going to clarify this definition on boats then?
So how would you like to clarify it? Would you like to,
I think vessels of size requiring registration probably takes care of that concern. Unregistered vehicles,
We're trying to give more teeth to the building department.
Yeah, our objective is, I mean, why allow any? Where do we define the limit?
well, because this is a coastal town and you expect boats to be part of the community, allowing boats in the yards makes a lot of sense for the convenience of people who live here.
John Cronin has a lot of friends that store boats at his house that live out of town, so.
I thought there were 2 or 3 boat yards on my street for a while. I understand if the parents have a boat, and then one of the children have a boat, and then one parent has an extra car that he takes the plate off, then both his kids take a plate off the car, then all their friends take. How many cars do you need on your, it starts to look like a junkyard. That was the intent of starting this. It's not to prevent a family from having 2 boats on the side of their yard. It's the junkyards that we're trying to prevent. And some of them are getting pretty sloppy because the enforcement, you got one guy out there trying to enforce the whole town. And you got people that have lived here for 40 years say, well, I've done it for 40 years, I'm not changing now. But you keep adding cars. I have a friend of mine, he's gone now, God rest his soul. He had like 11 cars in his neighbors were dragging him down to the town hall constantly. It was a junkyard, and there's no need of it.
There's a similar situation on the way to my house, our neighborhood.
Don't be afraid to use the mic.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Sorry, Bob. Is that better?
Yeah, much better.
You need a bigger stick, Bob.
All right, so.
So that's Article 5, supplemental regulations. And I see that as one article for a town meeting if you recommend it.
Entertain a motion for recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
With the changes.
Just the change that, Bob wanted.
Do I hear a second on that motion?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to adopt that for the special meeting with the changes on the unregistered vehicles as written. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Vote 4-0.
The next article is a series of definitions for frontage, non-conforming building or lot, non-conforming use, owner, lot, and FAR, which stands for floor area ratio. So the definition of frontage would be that the property line dividing a lot from a street providing access to the lot measured from one side lot line to the other. In cases of corner lots, and this is where the change occurs, the total shall include the distance between both side lot lines and the radius measurement of the corner, if applicable.
Ken, one change I would like to make, or suggest to make, on floor area ratio. After the acronym, I think in parentheses, they should write floor, what it means, instead of just leaving the acronym in there, because you're gonna get some old timers gonna say, what's a FAR?
It's too far to go.
I think just for clarity.
A note to follow, so. All right. And that's the relationship between the total amount of usable floor area that a building has, that is what the building floor area is, to the, which has been permitted for the building, and the total area of the lot on which the building stands. So this ratio is determined by dividing the total or gross floor area of the building by the gross area of the lot. It's how much square footage of building there is to how much square footage of lot there is. And this becomes important for consideration in the changes to the dimensional standards under Article 6. The other definitions that under Article 16 would be non-conforming building or lot, a building or lot that does not conform to a dimensional regulation prescribed by this bylaw for the district in which it is located, or to regulations for signs, off-street parking, off-street loading, or accessory buildings, but which building or lot was in existence at the time the regulation became effective and was lawful at the time the building or lot was established. That is a non-conforming building or lot. And a non-conforming use would be a use of the building or lot that does not conform to the use regulation prescribed by this bylaw for the district in which it is located, but which was in existence at the time the use regulation became effective and was lawful at the time it was established. And the owner, the definition of an owner would be a party or parties that possess the exclusive right to hold, use, benefit from, enjoy, convey, transfer, and otherwise dispose of an asset or property. And a lot would be a parcel of land used or set aside and available for use as the site of one or more buildings and buildings accessory thereto, or for any other definitive purpose in one ownership and not divided by a street, not including any land within the limits of a public or private way upon which such lot abuts, even if the fee to such way is the owner of the lot. As used here, in the ownership shall mean either legal title in fee or a tenancy under a written lease, the term of which is a period of not less than 99 years, of which the term there are not less than 50 years remaining unexpired at the time of issuance of any permit, building special or otherwise, under and as provided by this zoning bylaw, or any combination of paragraph A and B above, which would actually be, clarifying would be paragraph 1,
1 and 2.
1 and 2 above. So what this defines that the lot does not include the easement, the public or private way in which the lot owner may own to the middle of. And it defines what ownership means, as in the legal title and fee, or the terms of the lease that are long enough. Any questions?
Can you come up to the mic, please?
David Hurd. And your definition of a lot says that it does not include the right-of-way, which may be actually listed in the deeds, in the registry of deeds, as part of their property. But for your definition, it does not include that.
Correct.
So you're going to have a conflict between what the registry of deeds say and what the definition that the town has for the property lot.
Well, the registry of deeds will identify that area as an easement for the purpose of the rights of access over and across
Right.
to other property and to that property itself.
And why do we have a separate definition within the town? Why do we need a separate definition?
We need a definition. It's not separate, it's just a definition.
I'm just afraid it's going to cause confusion when I have a parcel of property that's defined in the registry of deeds as this parcel here, and there's a right-of-way going along it, and the town defines it as this section.
Well, logically, does it make sense to have a definition when you're looking at the building of a construction on a lot to include that area, not including the right-of-way that provides access to that lot.
Is that the reason for the definition?
Correct.
All right.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
if we're
it's
talking about
usable square footage.
Right.
All right, that's
Right.
fine.
Because if the roadway was 20 feet wide and we're talking about a 10-foot setback, and we let you go to the center line of the road,
You'd be right on the
essentially you
road.
could build right on the curb.
All right, no, that's
road.
fine.
So it's to bring you within inside the usable, buildable area, which one question I have, is this on buildable square footage? What if you have 5,000 square feet and 50% of that is unusable? It's wetlands area.
Buildable square footage is covered in a different section. This is just the definition for the lot.
So it's just a lot, period.
Right. And
what
not
percentage is
buildable area.
buildable. So I guess it would have to be the right configuration. So if you had a rectangle that's 50% wetlands, you'd be down to 2,500 square feet. And then the FAR for that is 25%.
You're jumping ahead. But you're right. The size of the lot, the smaller size lots.
I'm listening to this in isolation without the whole zoning bylaw in front of me, so it sounds as though you're thinking in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments out there in the audience? How's the board feeling that? Favorable recommendation? John's motion, do we hear a second?
I'll second.
Yep, seconds over there. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
All right, the next one is changes to the Article 6, density and dimensional regulations. There are a series of tables in there, in that article, that define the sizes for the setbacks and lot area requirements for different zoning districts. One of the things that we needed was something that identified the allowances for undersized lots. That is, those lots that are undersized that are lawfully existing, and what dimensional requirements they would be required to meet. We're finding that when you rezone different areas, you create conflicts that with the new zoning and setback requirements. So it requires projects to go before the Board of Appeals that may not be necessary if you have some standards for the smaller size lots. And so what this does is it sets front setbacks, side setbacks, and rear setbacks, and a floor area ratio that leads back to that definition for different size lots that are lawfully existing. That is, that they were created and in the correct criteria of ownership, that they meet the standard of lawfully existing. So in the tables, we would have new tables under 628 for existing small lots. They would have these new dimensional standards. And in this way, we'd be reducing the requirements of going before the Board of Appeals and having a rather expensive process of getting a permit.
Ken, how is the average alignment determined? And is it the building commissioner who determines what do we take, average footage from lot line to each
The,
of
the average alignment would be, this is for the front setback on lots
Yeah,
that, and the average alignment would be to look at 5 dwellings on each side of the abutting lot on the same block or street and provide measurements of the setbacks. That would be done by the proponent of the project, the owner of the lot, with information given to the building commissioner to review and to determine the average alignment.
and is it certified by the surveyor?
That's right,
But that's just to establish a minimum setback.
that's right,
If the homeowner decided to put it twice that distance back, that's at their discretion.
correct.
Or if there's an engineering reason why we needed the septic system in the front of the house as opposed to the back.
Correct.
Those are justifying reasons.
Yeah, and the fact is that this won't stop all Board of Appeals submissions.
Right.
I mean, there'll be certain conditions and certain situations that would require the consideration for different setbacks.
Right, but it will add some efficiency to getting this stuff approved.
Correct.
So my question here on the FAR is the relationship between the total amount of usable floor area. We're not talking about the footprint of the building, we're talking about usable floor area within the home,
Right.
right?
Well, gross floor area.
So if we go to the table here on lawful existing lots in residential districts at 0 to 5,000 square feet at 25% FAR would allow you 1,250 feet of usable structure. Does that mean I could put a 4-car garage there as well? With my 1,250 square feet of home? And actually cover a footprint of half that 5,000 square feet?
No.
No, this would include the garage as well, too.
The garage is all part of the same floor
So,
space.
that's why I'm asking about, what is the definition of usable floor area? If we asked a realtor what is a usable portion of home, and I say I got a finished basement, they'll say, that can't be counted.
Well, it's different what the realtor says to make a sale.
So I'm asking
David here, or did he
for-
leave?
Did he leave?
Stepped outside.
But I think it covers the buildable, or the usable, whether it's used for a car or for a bedroom. I think it's,
That's right.
uh,
The covered porch would
Floor
include,
space.
included, yeah.
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 Well,
I guess if you can walk, sleep, or
zoning for a long time. In some of the cases that would come in, it would scare you. They got a little 5,000-foot lot, and they want to put right to the lot lines. And their answer was, well, my neighbor did.
Yeah.
And then we got into, like, the front, that's how we came up with that years ago, was take the average of 5 houses on the next year. But the side lots and all, they're 6 feet from the lot, some of them were 2 feet from the lot line, then their overhang stuck over their neighbor's property, and it was brutal. So I think they're just trying to get to a point that makes sense, so when they come into David or whoever, it's
oh, there he is,
it's not
Dave's
a
here now.
battle. you know?
Dave, I got a question for you.
So our question is, under the FAR, the relationship between the total amount of usable floor area that a building has or has been permitted for the building to the total area of the lot for which the building stands. So if we just take the first example here in a residential district up to 5,000 square feet, you would be permitted 25% of usable floor area. Is that, how do you define usable floor area? That's 1,250 square feet of living space?
Yes.
Or, okay,
Yes.
and so that's a basic ranch, right? For an example, we put a ranch, 1,250 square feet, I want to put a 2-car garage on my ranch. Can I go up to 1,800 square feet?
No, FAR is floor area ratio, so it's the amount of floor area inside the house, whether it's 1 floor or 2, versus the amount of area that you have on the lot. 1,250 square foot ranch is a pretty fair-sized ranch. A lot of smaller ranches are in the neighborhood of 800 to 900 square feet. And all the way up to 12 to 1,500 square feet is a pretty big ranch.
So,
I think you should point out that you did a survey of properties in these different districts
Right.
to determine what was legitimate.
I actually went through and took, I can't remember exactly how many now. I think I took 15 homes of each lot size in each district that has a high home density. And that's where I came up with those numbers. It's pretty average house size in those areas for those lot sizes. And it was based on lot size in the areas that have high densities of homes, like Pinehurst, Swifts Beach Road, Shangri-La, areas like that.
so then it does equal the footprint of the foundation or slab.
Nope, it equals the interior floor area.
It's the interior floor area.
Interior floor area. So if it's one floor or two, livable floor area inside the house.
Does that include garages?
I didn't consider that, but I mean, other towns that I have worked in, the floor area ratio, I can't really remember if we counted garages or not. I believe we did actually, because it's actually not livable floor area, it's just floor area.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking for clarification, because I see the next question being, well, then I want the two-car garage. Because I just think it needs a little more clarification of what is usable floor area. And then my next question is, so is this all structures on the property? If you had a detached two-car garage, or you had a outbuilding to that, does that count towards that 25%?
No, so it would be the size of the house itself.
The principal
So if you-
residence?
If you have
Yeah.
a attached garage, well, then that's part of the house. If you have a accessory structure, that's different. That then is gonna take you on to other items like building coverage and impervious coverage.
Okay, so a
That's
covered,
just the size of the house that you can build on that lot.
what about a covered front porch?
No, that would just be building coverage.
Just building coverage, not usable.
Right.
Right.
FAR, floor area ratio. So, I mean, if we wanted to add something in there, like
Well-
enclosed floor area,
If you enclosed a porch,
if it's an enclosed porch, I mean, if
Or
if
an
it's a
enclosed
fully
deck.
enclosed porch, I would say we should probably count it, but I mean, floor area ratio is usually the interior environment of the house, floor area. Everything outside of that is gonna be building coverage and impervious coverage. If it's enclosed, or if you have a driveway, if you have patios. So I mean, there's other ways to capture that information. But that's just the size of the house. The whole intention of that is so that you don't get 8,000 square foot houses on 5,000 square foot lots. You know, you go in some of these neighborhoods and people maximize their house right to the outer limits.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not really fair for everybody else in the neighborhood and neighbors
Yeah.
that have to live that close to that house.
No, I'm in complete agreement with this. I just think we need to, because you're gonna lose your efficiency if someone comes back for the carport, the enclosed front porch. I want a three-car garage. Is that part of this, or is it included, or is it excluded from that 1,250 square feet? Because otherwise, you're building to a 10-foot parameter on that property now, and you'll get 8,000 square feet.
It would take a little bit of research.
Yeah.
I'd have to look up and see what other towns are doing, but I've always used FAR as interior area.
Yeah, and
I don't think we've ever really looked at porches with FAR. We always have used building coverage for items like that.
No,
Porches,
our
decks,
current-
things like that.
Our current definition for the gross floor area is the sum of areas of several floors, et cetera, from the exterior face of the wall. It does not include cellars, unenclosed porches, or attics not used for human occupancy, or any floor space in accessory buildings. So that's our present definition for gross floor area.
I think that's perfect. I mean, that pretty much calls it right there. So if it was an enclosed porch, it would count. Unenclosed porches would not, would just be building coverage.
Yeah, so I think just a little bit of combination of these two, because if we adopt this one, we void that one, then we've actually lost some of the definition. So Right, so we just get rid of the silly questions by just improving on the definition. Otherwise, makes perfect sense to me anyways.
Sounds good.
One other change to Article 6 would be in the residential districts, Table 620. We've had a problem trying to figure out what was occurring under the MR30 for multifamily, because the one-family dwelling was 30,000 square feet. A two-family dwelling was 45,000 square feet, and other residential use had said 30,000 square feet, going back to that same dimension as the one-family dwelling. I think it would clarify it more, it would make it more understandable if for each additional unit, it was another 15,000 square feet. Because the one family is 30,000 as our base, add 15 to that, 45,000, and that's what the two-family dwelling is. And then if there's another residential use that's permitted by the zoning bylaw, that it would be based on the idea of each additional unit requiring 15,000 square feet more of area within the lot. So that was the recommendation.
But could we be more clear to say additional, to indicate that it's the way it reads now, it's not clear to me, the 15,000?
15,000, well, that's what the note number 2 is for.
For each addition.
I'm sorry, I didn't read far enough.
That's all right.
Okay.
Okay. So in the example of the proposed structure we saw a couple weeks ago where it was 4 units, what would this say for property dimension on that? So it's gonna end up being, no, it was 5 units, right?
It was 6
3,
originally. Went down to
6,
6 would be
so it got 9.
60 plus
We ended up
30.
with 9 families, right? 9 residential units?
Yep.
So 9 residential units at a 2-family, and then it's 15 plus that, right? So it's gonna be 15 plus 7?
15 times 7, which is,
15 times 7 is 105, plus the original 45. So it's gonna be 150,000 square feet minimum to get that 9 units on there, based on this calculation.
that's right, which is about, which is a little over 3 acres,
Right.
45,000 square feet per acre.
What did they have?
Don't recall.
Yeah, I skipped that hearing, because
I think it was a lot less, it was a lot less than that.
It was like 90,000, I don't know.
It was probably less than that.
Because that's the problem that we had, because we didn't know where the third one came in. And here it says 15,000 for the third one,
Right,
and we didn't say it, we didn't think it was that.
no.
that was a number that I had mentioned to David at one time on zoning years ago. Ken Ferrera had come up with that, and I think it was from other towns and stuff that he had dealt with, that, you know, the first unit's 30,000, and it went to 45,000, and if they wanted to do a third or a fourth or what have you, he said the average was 15,000. That was a number that was stuck in my head from something he taught me 15, 18 years ago. And now I see that number coming up here. Is that a number you came up with, David, for that, or is it?
I actually did not.
Okay.
No, I came up
Ken
with that
Oh,
number.
you
Yeah.
did, Ken, okay, all right. And I had mentioned that to you one night when we were talking about it. I said that was a number that we had used on zoning at different times when they had that stuff. And it came from, and that's who it came from, was Ken Ferrera. He was the chairman for 25, 28 years before his passing, but,
For a suburban area, 15,000 square feet per unit is probably a pretty average.
Yeah,
That's
I
pretty
mean, for an urban area, you'd have less area requirements. You get down to 2,500, maybe 1,500 square feet if you were in the middle of a city. But for a suburban area like,
much- Or in Cambridge, you just build it.
yeah, right, as high and as big as you want. No, for a town like Wareham, the 15,000 square feet per unit makes a lot of sense.
That's fine.
And really, to get this to 3,000, the 30 plus the 45 plus additional 15 divided by 3 brings you back to 30,000 square feet for a 3-family, right? 3-unit. Then you start to get a break in square footage when you get to the 4th and beyond. So what it does at 3 is it pushes everything to 30,000 square feet.
Yeah, I think that one that came before us, we were talking about, I think we had like 70,000 square feet, a little over 70,000 total.
When they came to us, for the 9, was it 9 units?
Well, originally it was 10.
10.
They were going to drop one of the structures and make one of 4 instead of 3.
So it's less than half what we'd be calling out for here.
Does that make sense?
I think,
Yeah, it's just a matter of when you approve, or does it make sense to approve that before this gets put in front of town meeting?
I think so,
To approve it before?
yeah.
Okay. And then everything after town meeting, if this passes, will adhere to this.
Correct.
Okay.
your recommendation on that, would that change?
I don't follow what you just said. There's a hearing underway now that you're saying should pass the way they want it versus this. And then if this goes to town meeting and passes, everybody from there has to follow this.
So
Alright, so
so the
some-
development with the 10 units,
Yeah,
a few meetings back,
yeah,
only has about 70,000 square feet.
okay.
So do we want to entertain that between now and this zoning adjustment at town meeting? Or wait till after the town meeting to do that? Because it's about half of the square footage that this adjustment is gonna be calling for.
Well, that hasn't taken place, that hearing. That was the meeting I skipped because.
Yeah,
It's
they
continued.
need to come back in
Continue.
front of us because we did ask for it to be shrunk down some, so I think we should ask if those adjustments have been made and see what that looks like.
But the thing is, I believe the way the bylaw was written before, the way it was interpreted, it wasn't clear,
That's right.
wasn't clear.
So they came in legitimately with the previous bylaw that wasn't clear. And what we're trying to do is clarify it so in the future, it meets these standards.
Well, I think this is better.
So it's definitely clear now.
So that's gonna be our recommendation for,
Yes, yes.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, Ken.
That's enough, isn't it?
Okay, the next item on the agenda,
Monday,
we ready to move on,
Yes.
please.
is Seth Toby Road Trust, Realty Trust.
What is this? This is 2 residential houses for the...
Could you state your name for the record?
Sure.
And your intent?
On behalf of the proponent, Rob Chamberlain, to my immediate right is Dick O'Hearn, land surveyor. Next is Rick Hamlin, contractor. And Mr. Richard Johnson is the landscape architect.
Chairman, public hearing now, into the record.
Planning Board will hold a public meeting on February 26th, 2017 at 7, well, a little later, 7 PM, in room 320 at Wareham Multiple Service Center, Marion Road, to consider a site plan review special permit for a requirement of Article 15 of the Wareham zoning bylaw to Seth Toby Realty Trust, Post Office Box 271, South Dennis, Mass., seeking dimensional 2 existing residential buildings, demolishing two dwellings, and construct a 7,200 square foot commercial building, liquor store, with related parking, drainage, and other site amenities on property located on 16 and 18th Seth Toby Road in Wareham, Mass. Assessors map 85, lot 1004B and 1004C. And commercial zoning, commercial CS zoning district. Gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman, members, the proposal is advertised. It's a 7,200 square foot building for retail use. It's going to house a liquor store as its tenant. And this is a piece of property that was rezoned within the last couple of years. The rest of the entire area, as you well know, is significantly commercial at this point. We, I believe, are the last entrant into the community, so to speak. So we'd appreciate any kindnesses that can be extended our way. But we were faced with certain challenges as a result of that. We think the plan, and we'll hear tonight, I guess, the evaluation on that, but we think the plan complies with your rules and regulations and the zoning requirements. And as you can see, we have a full team here, and we're happy to address any questions or concerns anyone may have.
Manuel, we'll start with you. You're gonna,
Yeah.
okay.
We're looking for no opening up of Toby Road.
So why don't we discuss that?
This is the site now as it exists, with the dwelling garage. So they're gonna go,
Be a
they're
sticking
going away.
point. If that's a town thing, let's just end it.
This is what's proposed. Walmart across the street, Aldi's is up here. We're coming on Toby Road. Those are the ones, those are drainage areas. They're in there.
Do you all know where this one is located?
See what else we got here.
While they're familiar themselves with the plans, one of the requests of the Municipal Maintenance Department, which is in charge of the public roads and Toby Road, was not to have any opening of the road at this time. Do you have the proper connections, sewer, water connections that could support the development?
I didn't quite hear that, Ken, I'm sorry. I'm a little deaf and I have my hearing aid, but it's all the way up.
You gotta use the microphone as well.
The town road was just recently redone, and the Public Works Director does not want the road to be opened again. So do you have the legitimate, the proper lateral connections of sewer and water to support the development?
Yeah, I went to the water department, I found out, we got the water gate, we've got the sewer line, and we got the old line from the contractor who installed the old one. We really got a pretty good idea where the existing is on the lot, but there was no way to plot it based upon his as-built. And the other thing is, I did find when I was doing, I found a septic tank existing, which it turns out is filled with sewage, which has to come out. It should have come out back when they installed the sewer.
So the sewer and water that exists on the property now is enough to support the 7,200 square foot building?
I didn't hear that once again.
The sewer and water that's feeding to the 2 residential homes on the property now is sufficient for supporting the 7,200 square foot proposed structure?
Yeah, we're gonna be putting in a 2-inch line, because we wanna be able to irrigate the site as well as service the site with water. And, I've talked to the water department, the fire department, the sewage department, I've talked to them all half a dozen times at least.
But you can make that tie-in without disturbing Toby Road?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Can I speak? Rick Hamlin, contractor on the job. We've been working with disconnects with the current services. Everything is already all crossing the street now. There's actually 2 sewage lines crossing the street, one serving 16 and one serving 18. There's 2 water lines, one's 3/4 inch to both houses. We would propose abandoning both water lines. The water main is already on that side of the road, does not require a road cut period, because the main is outside the road limit of asphalt. So we would propose at the time to put in a 2-inch line just for future service. So there's no issues in relation to opening the road at the current time. There's already plenty of crossings there. The only question may be in relation to power, and we may look to your, board for some direction on that. We prefer to go under the road, obviously. Wouldn't require an open road cut.
Right. We can use directional boring for anything we need under the road. So there's no way we would need to open up that road.
Because the poles are on the Walmart side right now?
They are.
Did you receive the letter from the Wareham Fire District?
We did.
Is there any response to the comments that they have of the February 8th letter?
Did that letter relate to the water service?
Primarily, right? I believe it was the
Yes, it
water
was.
service issue, right? So I think we've addressed that. They noted that there was no irrigation shown on the plan, which is true, and that's really an error. It should be on there, and that's why we'd like to add the 2-inch line.
You're proposing 1 curb cut?
Correct.
That's all close to the other one, the backside of Wall.
That's right.
I think the issue that I have here, and again, I'm going down this road 3 or 4 times a day, but when, at this curb cut, you would turn out to a single lane traffic.
That's correct.
You wouldn't get to a widened road
That's
until you got up where the next is.
That's correct.
So, I guess, this is a transfer license from Rosebrook? Is that what's happening here?
Yes?
Okay. I guess my, just to the board members, my concern on this Toby Road is just the increased volume in total.
This is a second, this is another building proposal.
Would there be a way to
Yeah, that's crazy.
accommodate a second lane? I realize you'll be giving up some of your property to do that, but I think the majority of the traffic would
Put it
move
here to
towards the
establish
Cranberry
the
Highway
roads to get into property.
and towards the entrance to
If they put the
the
curb in
Aldi's.
here, can't make
When you say second lane, what do you mean? At the entrance, you mean?
At the entrance here, yeah. This radius on your curb cut
entrance to
is going right up to
the back of the
the
building.
required line. My concern with this whole area is we're zigzagging in and out
Two-way road.
of 2 lanes. Everything is pushing out into a single lane, right, and then it's reducing again
Right.
on this Toby Road. So then we're gonna have increased volume coming from here. And then the other,
The only thing, I don't mean to interrupt, the only thing I would say about the increased volume is that quite frankly, we anticipate most of the volume to come from traffic that's already there. We fully expect, most of the business to come from the traffic that's already generated by Walmart and Aldi's and the other projects. So we're not, none of us really know what's going to happen in the future, quite honestly, but our anticipation in terms of the business model is that it's really going to come from the people that are already using the facilities that are there. And you have the alternative access, that's really as you well know better than I do, it's the back entrance to that major shopping area there. So, there's quite a bit of, the traffic that's there, we don't perceive adding a lot to it, quite frankly.
what is the expected volume? What is the expected volume of customers to come into this business?
I don't think we actually looked at that, to tell you the truth.
Is it 200 customers a day?
It's possible.
So it's 200 cars taking a left turn in and then taking a left turn and right turn out. It doesn't matter that they've already been on Toby Road again, it's this interruption on Toby Road. There's such short distances between this back discharge of Walmart, the discharge off of the Target main entrance over there, and then we've had the Aldi's parking lot. Within 1,000 square feet, we've got, though being porous is beneficial, we've got a whole lot dumping out into 2 lanes of traffic. That's my concern.
And you do have rules and regs on that, and we did comply with it.
For sure. There's a whole master plan thing that didn't say every piece of property was gonna be developed here the way it was, and no one person should pay that debt, for sure. So I think, in my mind, a lot of this could have been resolved with a crystal ball, of course, right? And said, if we could find a way for the Aldi's complex to have discharged into the Cranberry Crossing complex, for this complex to discharge without moving onto all these public roads. But though the road has been done right now, if there's, I guess, some understanding or compromise that we can improve this circulation, and right now we're at 2 lanes, and we don't flare up until we get to the main Walmart entrance. But I want you to maximize the property, but I also want the board to understand and the township to understand is that there's a real possibility right now that we're gonna have a left-hand turn coming out of the backside of Aldi's and a right-hand turn coming out of your complex. And we got the Wareham police now concentrating all their energy on Toby Road at the same volume they're concentrating their energy on the Cranberry Highway right now because all this is happening.
We are very close to, I think from center line of the entranceway going into the project to the north of us, and from center line of ours, it's from 85 to 90 feet. We don't quite meet the 100 feet, but we also have 24 parking spaces instead of 25, so we're in compliance with the regulations, and I don't foresee the type of volume being generated here. It's going to primarily be people coming in during the main hours to buy the products sold here, not large trucks and that type of thing. And yet we still maintain a 45-foot turning radius coming out, and internally we maintain a 48-foot for maneuverability. I don't foresee a traffic problem.
Was any consideration put into joining that entrance and exit with the one next door, and the plaza next door?
That's a legal issue totally separate legal ownership. They have no reason.
Something that could be worked out, though, possibly.
I don't see why they would, quite frankly.
So they probably would, because they got about 4 more buildings that need approval on that piece of property.
There's another building proposed to go, well, basically right off that other curb cut on the back there.
Yeah. Well, we have,
That's exactly why they won't do it, because they're gonna give up right-of-way or accessibility to a neighbor, and that might affect what you approve for them.
Well,
They're the ones that want 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. That group there.
I mean, another way to look at this is that we have 2 curb cuts now, and we're reducing the 2 down to 1.
the thing is, you're putting a big building up there, that piece of property.
The other thing that kind of amazed me when I was up there, how many cars coming up from the south, heading north, going into Walmart, just cut into the truck entrance. They don't bother going up and pulling in. They just pull right into the truck entrance. And since the Northerly Shopping Center opened up, I've been up there 3 or 4 times, and every time I've been up there, of course, I had a survey where the crosswalk was and the new drive going down. But there was a number of cars that were in that shopping center that went around the back way and would come out which I thought to be only for trucks going in and then backing up to, unload and then driving around. There's nothing that can stop that kind of traffic. Even though I don't believe it was intended, but I know at the Walmart, just about everybody headed north, when they go around that, there's a little corner there, and then take that corner, they just take a left and go in the truck entrance.
I'm sure there's plenty of anecdotal information, but was a traffic impact assessment done for this?
That's why I don't see us having that problem on ours, okay?
Neither did Walmart.
We've only got
Walmart didn't
one.
think they needed it either.
What's that?
Walmart didn't think they needed a traffic study either. And the project where Aldi's is, they didn't think they needed one either. All right, so there were 2 or 3 little houses on that street. Now there's a Walmart, now there's gonna be a liquor store, there's a big mall there, JCPenney and all those stores are there now. None of them wanted to do a traffic study. So you all keep coming in saying, we're not adding to the problem. There's 2 houses there. You're gonna put a building with 24 parking spaces. Those 2 houses don't have 24 parking spaces, so you're adding to the volume. So don't always just say, we're not adding to the problem, because you are adding to the problem.
Hang on just a second. With all due respect, that is probably the case. However, the town did rezone the property
Sure did.
commercial.
Sure did.
So they
Sure did.
obviously knew what they were going to get.
Well, they didn't.
Well, okay. I
But I agree with you.
I can't answer for that, but the town clearly rezoned the property, and the property owner has a right to rely on that zoning when they invest in a piece of property. And I don't think what we're proposing here is outlandish, quite frankly. I think it's a pretty modest use of the property. In my town, I'd be very pleased if this is the project that came along under these circumstances. So, I know I'm not from Wareham. I know we're the last ones in here. So we're at your mercy in that sense. But, I think this really is pretty modest under the circumstances.
Well, hopefully you're not the last one in here. Hopefully we continue to grow as a community. But this is
Well,
this in
right
regard
this area, I
this in
know.
regard to Article 15, the site plan review, with the function that this board is doing.
Right.
There's an impact statement requirement in there that specifies the development of a traffic impact study that is submitted as evidence that the project is supportable by the infrastructure that's in place.
Well, I in all fairness, considering the extent of the development that's gone on, I didn't really perceive that the board would impose that on a 7,200 square foot project. Now, if that's how the board feels about it, if you will give us the time, we'll be happy to go and conduct the study and come back. We don't have any other choice. I don't have a study in my pocket now because I honestly just didn't didn't foresee that. And I think if you were in our circumstances, considering what's going on there, with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of square feet of development in that area, where this little store coming along, and I just didn't see it. So I apologize for that, if that's what you want to see, with the, with the requisite amount of time to engage that, and we'll get it done right away.
Well, I think we do, I would be in support of that, only because it's consistent with what we've told the other teams that have come in front of us. As I said before, the Aldi's Plaza still has 4 slabs left to be developed there, and we have requested the traffic impact study from them. It is beneficial that you're now back here in front of us before they're back here in front of us, because now they have an additional consideration, if this thing pushes through, on how it's going to be impacting any future development on that piece of property. My personal feeling is that today, as we stand in 2018, this is a liquor store. I don't know what it will be 10 years from now. I don't know what it'll be 20 years from now. 7,200 square feet, again, I'm not an expert, but 7,200 square feet is probably the size of the new 99 that we put on that side of town. And they're probably pushing an exchange rate of 500 people a day through there. Now, this doesn't have the parking to accommodate a 99, for sure, right? But we need to be thinking of future use. We're not asking you to carry any more burden than the other property owners, but that is a public street in which private industry is benefiting in all directions on that street. So we're asking for good partners in helping us solve for this. And if it's a matter of stealing a little bit from each to get this corrected the right way and make a safer environment, because that's our responsibility first, is the safety of the public. So to say that it's in zoning, you're absolutely right. But if we're creating and improving a development that creates an unsafe condition, that's not what we want to accomplish by any means.
Again, Rick Hamlin, just looking at this exit, which is probably what you're talking about, and I'd like a little clarification from you. Maybe
Yeah.
we don't need a traffic study if you've already got a number of traffic studies going on out there. I'm not quite understanding you. Are you asking for a third turning lane here, or are you suggesting that there be an improvement on the exit lane for acceleration? Is that what you're asking?
Right, so I look at this, living in West Wareham myself and traveling on this road 3-4 times a day. I intentionally keep going over this Toby Road. There's a couple things that I see can be improved here. One is, if we can at least widen up in one direction, and I think the greater demand is, out of your property, is going to be a right-hand turn entering up to the Cranberry Highway, where it's a single lane and then widens into 3 lanes. If we can just get that second lane there, which eventually will widen to 3 lanes, it'll let us queue these cars up, right? And allow us to continue to make right-hand turns into the Aldi Plaza if necessary, right? Or a little further up, we can turn into the Walmart. There's a whole lot of public demand and different reasons to be on this road right now. Folks will come down this road just to buy liquor. I know that you will have great success where you are, because quite honestly, it's a pain in the butt to get to the other liquor store in the plaza, because there's such a convergence in that parking lot right now. Just to avoid the headache of trying to find the parking spot, people will come to you. So I think just banking on who's already driving down Toby Road, right, is probably a good problem to have, but there's also gonna be the gain from folks that just don't wanna get caught up into that big parking lot. So there's considerations, and just like with the drive-throughs, we're talking about the volume of exchange. There's a big difference in the amounts of cars that come through a McDonald's drive-through as opposed to a bank drive-through, right? I don't know. Will this split into 2 businesses later on in the future? Will that change the behavior in there? There's a Subway and a liquor store in there 5 years from now. There's a bigger exchange into a Subway than there is to a liquor store. If we don't solve the problem right now with Toby Road, we're never going to be recaptured, and then we, the taxpayers, right, are left solving this problem. So we just want to find a good partnership in what we're going to be able to accomplish here.
So again, for clarification, you know you can't do anything to the south because the road's already existing in that direction. What you're asking for is simply an improvement heading north, coming out of the new location.
I think so. I think that would be a,
And I'm not speaking for the owner or anybody, I want clarification from you, that's what I'm looking for, is guidance from the planning board.
yeah, but I think, we're not the subject matter experts. Your traffic study will dictate the recommendations, which very well could be, this guy's nuts, nothing needs to be done, we can handle 50,000 more cars on this single lane road. I'd be surprised if it didn't. If all these traffic studies are gonna come back with no suggestions for improvement, I'll just be astonished. Then somebody's getting paid off right now, because there's too much going on here, including turning on to Toby Road, making a right-hand turn if you're coming from West Wareham, turning right to a yield sign, to a car pulling out of Walmart right now. I've almost been hit 3 times myself in the same day. Because no one honors a yield sign, and there's nothing stopping a person from coming out of Walmart other than a stop sign, and crossing 3 lanes, by the way. So my feeling is we need to be carefully think about this, not prevent the development, get it expedited and get it approved as quickly as possible. But just talk about what this looks like today, or to allocate the resources a year from now when all the development is completed. But there's an understanding, when all the development's completed, we all own a piece of the pie, including the town, on how to get this thing corrected. So, I'm babbling, but
No,
I'm just,
I would like to.
this whole intersection
add
excites
that
me too much.
Looking at this individually, ideally, the owners of these properties should get together and solve the traffic problem, which is gonna get worse and worse and worse. Looking at your project, which we want to help happen, but there is a problem here with these 2 curb cuts so close, that they're 30 feet from each other. 2-way street.
No, sir, 85 feet.
I'm sorry.
Center line to center line,
Well, okay,
85 feet. Well, that's, that's the
I'm on the right
requirement.
side of the curb of this lane, this person, and I want to go to the right, the person coming out of this lot is turning left, I'm turning right. I'm looking this way to make sure I'm not going to get into their way. He's looking that way to make sure he's not going to cut into their traffic. We don't see each other until it's too late. It's just not the best solution for dealing with exiting and entering of the traffic. All we're saying, and I don't want to repeat what Mark said, but there ought to be a study that encompasses
I couldn't make it on.
several properties, and I think the traffic study shouldn't be just for your lot. I mean, have you tried to talk to the neighbors? I mean, have you tried to?
We haven't, all I can say is that we have not had direct communication with them about this topic.
We don't want to be negative, we want to help you. But wanting to help you doesn't make me feel that this circulation pattern works. The building, fine, I mean, when you get to the building, that can be dealt with so much easier. But this traffic problem is gonna get worse if we don't deal with it now in the early planning stages. And your immediate neighbor here to the west, northwest, is critical to solving the problem. Maybe you couldn't combine a lane of traffic through which both of you enter and exit. Your building could move forward, your curb cut could be up here towards the west, meeting their traffic. You then all go out in one cut, not 2 cuts. I mean, it has to be looked at in the big picture sense. And doing it lot by lot by lot is going to continue creating what
That's
we
what I
want
was
to
thinking,
avoid
is make it one way.
from East Wareham.
Through here. Yeah, the other issue is because we're at 1 lane and there's very little breakdown area that's in there, there's no opportunity to pass a turning car. So what we're gonna end up with is 3, 4 cars queuing in either direction. Again, I think the traffic study will help to identify that, and some of, recommendations that may be made is there's perhaps a method of putting 2 curb cuts, and direction can only enter 1 curb cut and exit from another, just to move some of that congestion away. So if we turned in the northernmost curb cut, we would exit in the most southern curb cut. We might be able to eliminate a lot of this right-hand turns across those lanes that are there. or left-hand turns, rather. But these are some beginning thoughts from us on this. We talked about the intrusion into the newly completed Toby Road as a consideration. It sounds like you're on top of that, which is good news. So what I would like to do is just hear a little bit about the building itself, to see if it's consistent with some of the architecture that we have being developed in town. So that's to the other drawing, right? So we're looking at a structure that's similar in fashion to anything over in that area?
We like to think it looks better than what's around us, but that may not be
Cinder block walls?
conducive to
I'm
these
sure it does.
discussions that you want to say favors, so...
So we got 7,200 square foot. What is this, what is the size of the shop they're in right now? What sizes are they in Rosewood, the license holder?
3,000, I believe.
So more than double in size?
Yeah. Is that relevant in some way?
No, I'm just curious, just thinking of a size of a liquor store.
Well, I mean, their store is modest in size for liquor stores today, and I mean, I think it was pretty clear on the record during those hearings. I mean, they were dying, so I mean, we can't repeat what they were doing.
They should have stayed where they were.
So,
Long history, sir. Long history. We heard a lot of it, but you know,
I was there, I remember saying to them, they had the peak place, you come down the hill, you pull right in, you got your stuff out the door, you went. Now you're going into a plaza, around the corner, into a tight little spot, and
Right.
it killed them.
it did.
And that 3,000 feet or whatever they had was much bigger than what they had when they moved. But hey, history is history.
Right.
I think it's a good-looking building myself, but
Well, the sales floor area, you have to remember, is under 4,000, so it's, you know, there's a chunk that's taken up by cooler space and storage, back office, bathrooms. So the floor area, I believe, is around 3,700. It's not gigantic by today's standards.
so we're looking at the Toby facing side of the street here?
Yes.
And where's all the utilities for this building going to be designed? Are they in the attic space?
Well, the HVAC units, would be on the roof, I believe, as presently designed, although we may want to retain the option to put them on a pad. There would be most likely a generator on a pad. And the utilities hopefully will come in on the J.C. Penney side. That's the storage side of the building.
There's one thing I'd like to ask the board, and that is, from reading the zoning bylaw, I believe accessory use structures can encroach into the setbacks, am I right?
You saying accessory buildings?
Something like an air conditioner can be within a 10-foot setback if it had to be a foot or two into that.
As of right now, that's actually up in the air. We have an open court case that we haven't heard anything on right now. We haven't heard anything back from, but there was a project in town that had the air conditioning equipment in the setback, and it was appealed. So as of right now, we've been allowing AC condensers within the setback.
Well, we'd find some place for it, but if it had to be, I thought maybe up.
I can assure you, we won't go to court over it. We'll put it on the roof.
in the future zoning, we're going to require three-dimensional views of a building. Can your
Sure.
that person do it?
Architect, yeah.
What are the materials?
Generally wood frame.
The exterior?
Yes.
No, the exterior skin.
So shingles and,
Roof shingles?
no, sidewall shingles and cut stone.
So the horizontal lines represent wood shingles rather than clapboard.
Yes.
And what is the roof?
The roof would be asphalt shingles, I believe.
Is it a one-story or two-story? Pretty tall.
It's one story. We're trying to, we need to pick up the storage height so we can rack inside the storage area, so that's why there's some height on that side of the building.
Just curious, because I didn't see a stairway to the mezzanine.
There is no mezzanine.
It says mezzanine ceiling.
Yeah, it should have been removed. There was a mezzanine plan, but we couldn't make it big enough to make it economical to build it, so we took out the mezzanine, we'll just rack it.
So any roof-mounted utilities will be out of plain view of the public?
Correct.
Okay. And it accommodates 24 parking spots?
Yes. That's, my understanding is from Mr. O'Hearn, that's the required, and that is what we can accommodate. Both.
What is the normal number of employees to operate this store?
2 to 3.
So, at this point, right now, I think my major concern is just the entry and egress off the property. And again, I don't know where the other traffic studies are, but I think before we can draw a final conclusion, we need to have some understanding of volume coming from this type of establishment on Toby Road and an impact study on Toby Road. It's tragic that we have to piecemeal all this together between the Walmart, the Aldi's Plaza, now your plaza, right? It'd be great if all anticipated structures were going to be there and we can computer model this thing all the way through, but it's being piecemealed. How soon will you be starting the project?
Well, that's,
Would like to start the project?
we'd start tomorrow if we could. We know we have to apply for a building permit, obviously, and there's a time frame with that. We were hoping to get going with that as soon as possible, so we're under constraints because of the license. We need to proceed because we don't have a home right now. As part of the, again, I don't know how much everybody watched the hearings. I hear from people in town that watched them. I guess it was like a reality series there for a while. But the ultimate decision required us to shut down during the period of time between the transfer, which took place last year, and us building the space and having a home. So the business is shut down now, and it needs to have a home soon. Not just from a financial point of view, but from a licensing point of view.
What is your construction period, about 8 months, 9 months?
Hopefully, Rick's going to shoot me, but hopefully 6 months, no more than 6 months.
And on that note, the rest of the buildings will be demolished, so, we are in the process of disconnecting all the utilities for the time being so that they can be done. So I'd like to be able to, apply for that demolition permit really soon so that we're not wasting time, so to speak, in a time frame of construction when site work can be done. So buildings could be demolished and removed expediently. Site work can begin. It's going to be somewhere in the rear or the east side of the property that needs to have some grading done and compacting and so on. So there's quite a bit of work that can be done during the process of getting final approval. But, I understand the planning board has to give its overall approval, but we'd hope we'd be able to start some of that work immediately.
Essentially, that lot's going to be totally clear-cut, right?
I would say, judging by the site plan that I've seen, but, I will explain to the board, I've been a landscape contractor for 40 years. I've built probably 20 or 30 of these projects, and I'm well known in the town of Howard, along with Mr. Chairman, as some of the best builders in that town. Every single project we do is well landscaped, and consideration of the neighbors is of utmost priority. So the first thing I'm gonna look at is what trees can be saved. Unfortunately, some of those large oaks out in the front are gonna have to go, they're in the parking lot. But, there's a few on the perimeters that maybe can be salvaged, and I'll work to do that.
So my recommendation is the traffic study. Come back with some information on that, and from this team here, if the answer is no from your neighbors, I would like just a good faith effort to have a conversation about them to see if this can be solved amongst yourself and see if you can help us improve this circumstance here. If they just don't want to hear anything about it, they'll be in front of us in a month from now and we'll take it up with them. But I think that I personally would feel much more comfortable coming to a final conclusion knowing that this team made a best faith effort to try to come up with a better outcome than what we have right now on Toby Road. If it can't be solved between the traffic study and working it out with the neighbors, then we'll make the decisions based on the data that we have.
Are you, and again, I'm just asking, are you holding out the possibility that with the traffic study and what comes out of that, we would be able to resolve our situation without participation from our neighbors? I mean, I'm not suggesting we don't try, but I mean, I've been in the commercial real estate game for quite a long time, and I know how hard it is to cut these kind of deals, especially with people who probably feel they have all the leverage. So this is not going to be an easy conversation. I mean, I'll pick up the phone tomorrow, believe me, and we'll be on it. But I'm just asking, is there some openness to considering, I mean, if we go to the expense of a traffic study, is there some openness of considering some resolution that doesn't involve the neighbor?
So my feeling right now is that the leverage is actually on your part, because there are four pieces that still need to be developed in that Aldi's Plaza right now. So you as a standalone right now have minimal impact on Toby Road, right? So it would behoove both parties to try to help us solve the Toby Road issue now, because it's gonna actually push more burden on your neighbors when they come back and for approval. Because certainly if they want to put a very active restaurant in there, if they want to put very active retail, it's all going to exit right out there at this 50 to 80-foot division between these two curb cuts, right? And again, we don't have this crystal ball that says, hey, the guy that exits Aldi's wants to go to JCPenney, or he wants to go to Maxi Gas right now, or he wants to go to Walmart. We don't know how these folks are going to behave right now.
Curb cut to curb cut is 30 feet. 85 maybe to the curb cut to curb cut
30
is
feet,
30 feet.
yeah.
Come on.
So if, if we, and again, if the board approves it, then anybody that's representing development in Aldi's, right, and I think the last time he was up here from North Carolina, right, then I think that it would help us to have an inclusive conversation of everyone and what we're trying to accomplish.
Well, there's a developer there too. Aldi's is a tenant.
Right, the developer.
So
Yeah.
it's the fee owner we have to deal with, and
Right.
then he's got to deal with his tenants. So I mean, it's a complicated issue.
So that,
No is a perfectly acceptable answer. We gave it our best effort. We feel good that we did what you requested and tried to have a good conversation with them.
I already know my first call tomorrow, so I mean, we'll get on it and we'll see, if we can bridge the gap.
Bring him a bottle of wine.
Might need a tunnel going from Walmart to Aldi's for the next guy.
Bigger directional boring than we
Yep.
were planning on, I think, but,
So, Mr. Chairman, the question to Ken is, so the developer that's next door, that has the Aldi's and the...
Jay Donegan, yeah.
Yeah. They've done a traffic study, you say?
Yes, they have.
All right, and what's it for? What proposed buildings or for what they have there now?
For the shopping center, and then a supplemental traffic impact analysis for the Wendy's.
Okay.
Both the other three,
There's
pads.
3 other pads. So I don't see putting, it's in the regulation, so I won't go against the regulation. But to put this applicant through a traffic study, when the traffic study from the big developer isn't done yet, to me, it doesn't make sense. Because we can get him to agree to do anything he wants, and he's only got 30-odd feet to the neighbor's curb cut. Unless he takes his curb cut and he puts it at the other end of his property, I don't know, I'm not gonna get into design. But how long is your property? Put your entrance at the other end. You know, it takes it away from the neighbor's entry. If I recall, that developer that was there was not an overly cooperative person to deal with all the pads and what he's gonna put in and what he wants. Then as soon as he got his permit, wasn't he the one that came back and said, I want to enlarge this pad and enlarge that pad, then put the building right out on the sidewalk? Wasn't that the same guy?
Yeah, as he
So I
discovered
don't want to put a gun to
leasing up.
their head, you know, when they're one lot down further. What about getting his traffic study? And if you want to hook them up with that developer, fine, but to hold them hostage for a traffic study that's behind the developer that's not being cooperative, I have a problem with that. I have a problem with them spending money like that if the other guy hasn't done it first.
I don't think you should say that they're not cooperative, because they have submitted their proposals and.
Well, I only go by the drama that goes on at the meetings and all. I don't know whether he's cooperative or not, but.
But I think there's a consistency amongst all of them, right? We've asked for the traffic study from Walmart, we've asked it from the developer for the new plaza with Aldi's, and we're asking it for this piece here, right?
And what does the traffic study do for this lot if we don't have agreement on the traffic study in front of them to the corner?
Well,
Oh, would you like consulting engineering, peer review?
I myself don't think it's necessary, but what I'm asking, I guess what I'm asking, and I don't know how to word it, is the guy down the street, the guy on the corner that's got the big development, I think we need to clarify what he's gonna do to help the traffic situation versus the next guy down. The next guy down, these people, he could probably move his entrance down further, which gets it away from the one where, you know, Manny's saying that it's too close. Maybe he can move it to the other end.
All we're doing is kicking the can down the road.
Well,
that's
I
all.
understand that, but I'm just curious about a traffic study in the middle of the road. What about the one at the end of the road?
Alternately, we do it, and we tell them all where to put their curb cuts.
Well, that's,
We do our own master plan, and gentlemen, you want to build, this is how you come in, this is how you go out. When we ask them to do their own traffic studies, it will be for their own interest, in many cases, and in my experience, ignoring what's another block down. If we did our own, thinking aloud, they wouldn't be in this position.
Mr. Chair, it's a little too late for that. This stage of the game, we're already here in front of you with a proposal that, for the most part, complies with everything that you're looking for. It seemed to me, if we take a couple of weeks to look at this and revisit it, maybe something can be done that's a compromise that you folks are looking at. Kicking the can down the road with a traffic study isn't necessarily gonna solve, you know,
Probably not.
especially with the future development of Aldi. So it seemed to me that, you know, we've got a project here that's viable, we've got an exit problem, for lack of a better term. And I'm not speaking for the owner, I'm just making a comment in general, that it seems to me we could work together to solve this problem, perhaps with David, perhaps with, you know, the town engineers. You know, try to move this project forward.
Have you guys received anything from, Charlie hasn't seen this, right?
No, Charlie hasn't received this yet. Charlie Rowley is our town consulting engineer. And we could also have him review the stormwater management calculations for that was done by Baxter Nye Engineering.
That's the letter from Charlie. He hasn't said nothing to them, though. He hasn't seen these plans.
that was just his proposal, right, to review it?
That's correct.
Yeah.
David, wouldn't it be easier, like you and Charlie, get together with these guys and maybe go over some of these questions with that?
Yeah.
My beef is the traffic studies. Every single developer comes in and we all get the traffic study that there's nothing ever needed. I think maybe get the officials together and sit down with this guy and figure out, maybe it's something that could be worked out maybe quicker than, you and Charlie or something with these guys.
There were, I don't know if you should say that nothing was done, because there were intersection improvements that were made as a
Do you
result of
like that
Walmart.
intersection?
I didn't say I liked it, I said there were improvements that were done.
That was an improvement?
It was supposed to be.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I just think it might be quicker just to get them all together, and, because they're gonna get a traffic study, and then they're gonna come back, and we're gonna sit and beat it to death, and it's not gonna do anything, because we don't have what we're gonna do in front of it.
I think better than the traffic study is have them sit down with Charlie and Dave, like it was suggested, and put that money to use there. Come up
Well,
with a
that's just,
solution.
that's just my idea, so.
Essentially, where the two houses stand right now and the curb line is the same for what your building will be, right?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
Yeah, but basically, the extent of the road is what it is,
Yes,
right? And the existing curb cuts can be used for construction right now?
well, they could be, yes.
So you could move forward with the demolition without a final conclusion on the positioning of the curb cut?
Yes, sir.
Right, and the impact study that's
Right.
there.
Right.
So I think there's maybe some resolution, just, if we can think openly mindedly and know that we may need to adjust, right?
That's fine.
We can at least move the ball forward on getting this approved. Now, I'm not saying, still want the discussion with the neighbor, I still,
Absolutely.
I'm not, I think there's value in the traffic study, John, maybe not so much, but it'll at least give us some time to digest the traffic study that's already requested, which I don't know where it is, because that's gotta be a month and a half out now since that was requested.
Just for clarification, did you say Walmart was asked to do one, or already?
They did do,
They did one, so that one is,
there was no traffic.
So they did the one 2 years?
Beat it.
is that a public record with the town at this point?
Yes, it is, and you can review that traffic impact analysis if you
Okay.
wish.
Okay, great.
Don't hire the same guy.
Is there a way to work with the application team here to leave room to work on the curb cut and the positioning on Toby Road, but let them start to move forward in the permit process? Or do we need to get a clear understanding on the final
Well,
outcome right
I
now?
don't think we want to lead them down the path of, we don't know which way we're going, one way or the other. We want to let them know right up front. I think it's a good time to get Charlie aboard with them, to help them review the plans and come to some kind of resolution that we can live with. Hopefully, we can live with. And then they know which way they're gonna go from there, because,
Just on one note to address that, the way the application permit process works is a separate application for demolition, separate application for
Mhm.
building. So there are two separate
yeah,
applications.
but the demolition, we don't care about that, the trucks come in there, that stuff is gone 2 days.
But what I'm saying is, I don't think there's a dramatic repositioning of the slab, a dramatic relocation, or a dramatic adjustment on the drainage. I think those things are pretty consistent. It's a small piece of property. I think the one variable here is just a matter of, is it a single direction with two curb cuts? Is it move the primary curb cut further down?
Well, I think
To the
that's where our
south?
consultant engineer comes in.
Yeah.
That's his expertise, not ours.
Right,
That's why we have
so-
him aboard.
So I think
I'm sorry.
to support, not holding this process up from the traffic study,
Well,
we
thing
can
is, we'll
get
work
this
this whole
moving
thing out
forward
either
and
way
have a
around.
conversation with Charlie, right?
Right.
So that's probably the way to move this thing forward. Let's, just a mutual understanding among everybody, we gotta still look at this traffic issue, and not for you to carry the full burden of that. Let's get the slab evaluated, let's get the drainage evaluated, let's get Charlie to sign off on this thing. And hopefully, in 2 weeks' time,
See
you
where
can
we're
talk to
at.
the neighbor and say, hey, bub, get the traffic study, you're holding us both up right now, and it's probably working against both of us at
Well,
this point.
can we make a deal? That
Yeah.
would be the
Right.
ideal thing, you know?
Yeah.
It benefits everybody involved, not just you,
Yeah.
it benefits them also.
So your concept of what you would like to see the neighbor allow is some type of through access to their entrance? Is it,
Make a common curb cut.
A common
Yeah.
curb cut. And that
so you
brings
want them to allow us to use their curb cut that they've built now, and then we create a curb cut inside, right off the entrance?
You each half of, half of the curb cut is on your lot and half on theirs.
Well, they've already constructed their curb cut. They're not going to rebuild it.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean any disrespect. Yeah, that is fully constructed out there. Yeah, their situation. So that, I mean, yeah.
We're doing Cranberry Highway all over again, guys.
Every highway's terrible.
Toby Road.
We're doing it.
Yeah.
We're repeating it.
Yeah.
We've been trying so hard to avoid that mistake, and it's happening again.
I don't believe that's actually accurate. Very minimal impact. If this plan, the way it's designed right now, there is absolutely minimal impact on Toby Road where that curb cut goes through. And there are ways to mitigate that.
I understand that fully. If you were a standalone, if we evaluate you as a standalone, and we should evaluate you as a standalone applicant, I'd say it's minimal impact. We can no longer look at all these as standalone. We have to look at the 1,000 moving parts, right? And believe me, Toby Road, to me, is less of a problem than going west down the Cranberry Highway and getting towards the Wareham Pharmacy, and what happens with all those pieces of property right there. That is a bigger problem to me than what's happening on Toby Road. But every decision has to be at the greater level up here, and seeing how it all works together.
I just want to clarify, I didn't mean there was a minimal impact of what
Yeah.
we're discussing. The impact was in construction.
Oh,
That's all.
oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood
Yeah.
where you are there. So what is the board, Mr. Chairman, what are we recommending right now? Go
I
to
think the
Charlie and then?
recommendation is getting Charlie aboard
Yeah,
and sit down with them, see if they can resolve some of this.
Yeah.
Come back in 2 weeks.
so I would agree with John at this point right now. I think he's right in correcting me on the traffic study, but
Are you aboard with it, us on that? I think we all are.
yeah.
We're reasonable people. as,
Likewise.
Tim used to say.
Well, you know what we're trying to do, right?
I do. I get it. I get it.
The building is not the issue.
No, I get it. I kind of feel like we're caught on the raw end in all seriousness, but that's just the position we're in, and you know,
Nothing personal.
No, I get it. We are the out-of-towners, I know, but no, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding.
Well, everybody,
used to call
everybody
out-of-towns
that came
capital
there was
also.
an out-of-town. There's no in-towners down there. Don't worry about that.
I'm only kidding. No, we operate in a lot of towns, so
And can
we do our
uh,
best.
use you as an interface
Yes,
to hook these guys up with Charlie? And
Right.
possibly if Dave wants to get involved. In the next couple of weeks, maybe you guys can hash some stuff out and share a couple of cold beers since you got a cooler full.
so what we could do is we could continue until March 12th, which is the next potential meeting date, but that is also town meeting, the special town meeting on the marijuana bylaws.
You guys aren't selling marijuana there too, are you?
No, never.
What you guys can do is add a second floor to that, and we can put a cultivating unit up there.
No offense to anybody on either side of that one, but we're not getting involved in that. We've got enough trouble on our own home court.
March 12th is out there.
So then that'd be March 26th then, if you
March
want.
26th, that gives you even more time.
Oh, okay.
That'll sound
All
good.
right. And so what we'll do is I'll get you give you this copy of the letter from Charlie Rowley, the consulting engineer. It's a cost of $2,500 for the review that would be done as a 53G account.
That's fine. Do I need to sign that?
No, what you need to do is give me a check with a
Okay.
W-9 form, with 2 W-9 forms. Then we'll set up the account and then get him started right away.
He's got an inspection fee on the back too, if you want to,
Well, we don't do the inspection fee until
until that time.
we're ready to inspect.
You want our tax ID number? On
Yeah, we need a W-9 form
right,
for whatever
that's a
tax.
tax ID. That's what you're asking me for, is my
Yeah.
tax ID, for what?
To create an account with the money.
Who cares? What, is it, put it in a non-interest bearing account. I'll give you the check, that's not an issue, but I don't even want the interest.
I
The
don't,
hell
I
with
don't
it.
set the,
It's-
I don't set the policy on this.
All right, well, okay. That's fine. Made out to whom?
Town of Wareham.
All right. So to be clear, you're saying no traffic study at this time? We're going to go this route, we're going to consult with the town, with a consulting engineer and try to work out a resolution? Am I here, if I'm not trying to restate
What were
you,
saying,
but...
John?
Well, that's what I was saying, but I had two partners that were the other way. I'm not gonna vote against them. You know, if that's the best
I
thing.
hate spending people's money.
Yeah.
The best solution here is to rebuild the neighboring curb cut, and that there's one curb cut, one driveway, half on your property, half on their property, and you both benefit. And your building could work very well closer to Toby Road, so that your parking is on this side. I think visually, it's, you know, you have your landscaping, you have your building, which is recognizable. You drive in, you park on the west side, and that's where you exit and enter. At least you're now 100, how many, more than that, how many? Now you're 700 feet away. I'm sorry, what is it? 70, I guess, farther away from the road than you are now. And that at least eliminates the potential danger of cars not seeing each other. He's looking that way, he's looking that way, and
How does the exiting vehicle, just out of curiosity, get out of our store that wants to go right? How does he get into a right lane?
just the way you do it now. Just the way you do it now. Just the way you would do it this way.
He ends up perpendicular to Toby Road.
Okay. But they're running all those, that's an alternative access for them. They're running all those vehicles in and out of there. How does one curb cut?
What if you moved your curb cut to the far end of your property?
Well, we actually looked at that, to be honest with you. And it's, I mean, if that's what it comes down to, we'll have to really look at it. But it does complicate the development of the site. It has to do basically with the angle of the property. It's not an exact square. It's not a parallelogram. The back line actually angles out towards Aldi's, and it creates, believe it or not, it creates a nightmare from the standpoint of trying to figure out which line to hold, the back line, whether to hold Toby, how to get the parking spaces in. Now, I mean, if you folks are willing to be flexible on some of your requirements in terms of the parking, you know, we probably, that would make it easier for us. What else would we need? Is it parking primarily? What else would we need?
Parking, do we really need 20-foot parking?
And the turning radius was an issue down on that end. We were able to get it, the turning radius correct because we had that entrance is at the wider depth of the property, so it made the turning radius work. We couldn't really make it work too well down the other end. So, I mean, it's just math. That's what made it hard. Otherwise, frankly, you know, we would have done that. So we can actually move the entrance towards J.C. Penney, what, 15 feet?
I can get the 100 feet.
We can make the 100, so we can move it another 15 feet. Then we have, you know, if that helps, but that's.
Backed off because it was easier to
excuse
get
me,
the turn.
I just need to show you on the drawing, because I don't think
Yep.
we understood each other.
Okay.
I may be wrong, but.
No, I'm probably not getting it.
Why couldn't you have a curb cut?
Any other hearings? I gotta get up early.
Right, so how are you getting in and out of our space? Okay, so you, right.
Okay, but now, how are they?
I told Jasmine,
They're doing the same thing, I mean, their curb now comes like this.
Yeah, I know.
And they get more land between their building.
We've got to get cooperation from them.
Yeah, no, he's saying that, yeah.
But that eliminates the problems.
So you basically, I mean, we really wouldn't have to rebuild the entrance. The way you're suggesting, all they would have to do would be to give us rights to come in and out through their entrance.
Also, that's the best, if they would let you do the right.
Well, they're gonna like that better than rebuilding the entrance, but are you guys gonna like that?
How about coming right across this way here,
Well, that's, yeah, right, that's,
right across that way?
But where do you exit?
What's that?
Where do you exit?
Closest entrance up there to
You want to do that, sure. The challenge with this is that you.
Mike, we don't go beyond 10, do we?
I know that.
This is why.
yeah, no, I agree.
Good idea.
I agree.
We got one more
But
discussion.
You-
with-
Yeah, the only thing while you're standing here that I would mention is you mentioned the 30 feet. I mean, with all due respect, yeah, I know, but it doesn't really, no.
Maybe we shouldn't try to design it right now.
Well, that's all right, I know.
Fire department.
It doesn't work well on TV, I know.
So we know that's the biggest stumbling block right now. It's not the
Right.
building, it's not the property. If we get Charlie to sign off, we can keep moving this thing down the field.
Okay, so we're gonna see you guys in, you're gonna meet with our town engineer.
They need an
We're
exit
gonna hook up
onto
with
Toby
Ken,
Road.
we'll get all that coordinated.
All right,
We'll try to get you guys in the right direction.
okay. And,
Is that right?
We're gonna do that in a minute.
okay, and, yeah,
Well,
and
we
Rick
got
can,
one more to go yet. We got Waypoint coming in.
and Mr. Chairman, Rick can proceed with the, and Mr. Building Commissioner.
can knock the
with
building down,
demo, is
sure.
that okay?
Have a yard
And-
seal, do whatever.
All right.
If you know, cut the trees.
Well, you've got to bring in Phil, you've got to do a bunch of things.
Hey, that's got nothing to do, that's just site prep. We couldn't care less about that.
Let's
long
get
as
them
Dave's
open
happy.
by the 4th of July so we can make some money here.
I apologize for my hearing. I took a shower and I left the hearing aid in. And it keeps going back to volume, setting one. Setting one, I can't hear anything, so I keep
Yeah.
pressing to get setting three.
I won't tell your insurance company.
To extend,
Go get another one.
Good enough.
extend this one, Spring Avenue.
And I'm sure if I asked your wife, you did that on purpose.
We'll
Well,
deal with that
actually,
one
at
later.
three, I
and
can
then
hear
it'll be
everything, but at one, I can't hear nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, I need a motion to continue the public hearing to
So move 26,
the 26th.
March 26th.
second.
Motion made, motion second. Any discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Aye. 4-0. See you guys later.
Thank you all. Appreciate the time.
Okay, I'm gonna need a motion to extend the hearing on Spring Ave. That's the nine units?
Are they here?
No, they're not.
But they emailed.
They emailed Ken,
Request
they
for
asked for an extension to push it out. The next hearing's gonna be the 26th for them.
All right, make a motion on Spring Ave to extend it to the 26th of March.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
22nd. Ken, what's this Woodland Ave? Woodland Cove.
Woodland Cove is the 40B application. They're going to be coming in to start the public hearing this Wednesday.
Is that the one on Red Brick Road?
That's the one on Red Brook Road. We're going to go spend some time in a future meeting of the board to discuss referral on this one, and what your comments and recommendations will be.
Okay.
Did you keep those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving on from there, the next one we have on the agenda is other business.
Just to add to that, we have a 40B handbook, if you're interested in finding out more about the standards and the process for Chapter 40B, affordable housing.
You familiar with 40B, Emmanuel?
Vaguely, but not thoroughly.
Would be some good reading.
Okay, I'll send that around.
Okay. Next?
Next.
Next, we have a pre-application for a conference center. Oh, application conference, Bay Point. Do you know them people?
Do you know them? This is as per the zoning bylaws, Article 590.3.
What
regarding the standard process for the Conference Recreational District.
Good evening, gentlemen. Happy New Year to all of you. It's good to be back in front of you to complete the Bay Point plan. We've got an agreement with CETA, and we're moving ahead with the acquisition of that property, and we're looking to incorporate and complete the plan that was approved last fall with permanent relocation of the road, and we're looking for a concept conversation this evening and approval for an apartment building of approximately 50 units.
15 or 15?
50, approximately 50 units on the Cedar parcel, and 3 additional duplex buildings along where the road is curving inside. So in your packet, you have 4 illustrations. I think they're all in the same order. The first illustration is the plan that was approved in final form last year, where the road comes in, kind of bends out to the left, loops around, and heads down towards the clubhouse. The second plan is just a blow-up of that. So all of the perimeter is the approval that we received for the 84 units. Inside the red line is the CETA property as it exists today. There's a blacktop parking area, there's woods, there's a gravel parking lot, and there's a clubhouse facility. The third page is what we would like to do to accommodate basically the 3 operations that will be existing at the Bay Point Club. So on the CETA piece, down to the lower right, you can see the start of the concept of a 4-story, approximately 50-unit market rate apartment complex with the appropriate parking for that facility. The road is a new road that is winding in from the existing road that gives us the ability to provide adequate new paved lit parking for the pavilion operation. It's going to be a huge benefit to the program that we run for weddings and events at the Bay Point Club. As you move further down the road, and you can see how it's illustrated, again, strictly concept, these plans will develop with landscaping and all of the details that would follow. It's basically 1 lane each way with a median in between that will be landscaped, that takes you down to where the road turns to meet Cahoon Road, and we're putting a rotary in to slow traffic down. We've got, golf course activity and things going on at the clubhouse to be able to go to the north end of the site or to the south end of the site. And with that, we'll be able to do new paved, landscaped lit parking for the clubhouse operation and the golf operation. So what this plan allows us to do is basically 4 things. It allows us to take ownership of our entrance and create a new entrance. It allows us to properly provide support parking for the existing pavilion operation. It allows us to build market rate apartments and provide the appropriate parking and landscaping for that. And then as you travel down further, it allows us to provide new parking and clubhouse access for the golfing population. And at 10 o'clock, after a long evening that you guys have gone through, that's my elevator pitch for our concept approval at the Bay Point Club.
So, can I ask 2 questions,
Of
Mr.
course.
Chairman? Just a couple of quick questions. So the pavilion, the main clubhouse, it's really just a new parking lot is what's happening over there.
So we'll do changes to it. That building is part of what we're acquiring from CETA, and it is literally at the end of its useful life. So we will renovate that building and do something structurally to it.
All right,
But the parking is the big issue there.
right. So then as you travel past that on the road, the 2 units that I see on the left, those are proposed, or,
Yes, Mr. Cronin, there's 3
We're on the third top.
buildings, and it would be, as you come down that red line, the
Yep.
first 2 are units number U1, U2, U3, U4.
right, yeah.
And then if you cross right across the street, that building right there,
The-
those 3 buildings
Are new.
are new.
That's fine. And then the clubhouse itself, that's where the golf carts and the stuff are now. I met you there for pizza one day.
Yes.
But anyway, you're gonna do something to that and enhance that piece of property as well.
Dramatically. The footprint will remain the same, the building will be renovated, and the exterior will change completely.
And that parking lot will all be enlarged.
All
Okay.
brand new, yes.
Okay, in favor of all that, let's go up to the apartment building.
Sure.
So the main road in stays the same, although you'll enhance it a bit. You'll pull up,
It physically moves quite a bit.
oh, does it?
So
Does it?
if you follow the red line, which is the property line of Cedar, the existing road is on the left side of that red line. So you can see now where we're bringing it inside that property line,
Okay.
and we're creating this rotary that was not there before, that's
Okay.
getting you off into different directions.
All right. So where do we stand with the 50 apartments, 4 stories tall? Can that building be, a 3-story building and be longer?
So we've played with several different scenarios. We think that at 4 stories, we will be at approximately 50 feet, 48 to 50 feet, in a zoning requirement of 56 feet. So we know we're below the zoning requirement, and as you go 3 stories versus 4 stories for the 50 units, you're extending that footprint out, pinching the parking and really making it too close to the road. We don't want you to pull in and feel like you have a building overcoming your arrival experience.
Okay, so 4-story, and here's the only concern I saw when I look at, these are all houses around you as you enter in there. So now you're putting a 4-story complex relatively close to the back of those properties. What do we have, is there trees there now? I mean, I was down there with you, what, a year and a half ago?
Sure.
I haven't been in there since. Is
So-
there a
so
tree
that-
line there, or is?
That area is mature pine trees that are going to be left in place, that are approximately 30 to 45 feet high. They're mature trees. The 3 homes on Onset are residential homes.
Right.
And as you look at the footprint of the building, the one to the right is an apartment building. So that is a two or 3 story, it might be like 2.5. I think it's a walkout with 2 stories apartments, and the one behind it is also a small apartment building. So the existing cover is going to remain in place, and 2 of the buildings are currently apartment buildings, and the 3 units on Onset Ave, they are residential homes.
Have you spoken with any of these abutters?
I have not about this plan. We wanted to have this introductory meeting this evening with the board and get your sense as to market rate apartments on this complex that we like a lot. We think it adds to the mixed-use component. It adds a different variety of housing opportunity to the overall development. And we wanted to come this evening and have this discussion.
On the site plan, where is north? It's missing.
On this site plan, what is north? It is missing, and that's a great question. I would say it's off towards the upper right-hand side of the property. And we will incorporate a compass location on the next set of plans.
It's towards the upper right-hand corner of the plan.
Yes, a diagonal line from lower left to top right is the general direction of north, I believe. Do you, kind of?
Okay, I think so.
What do you think?
No, not sure.
Okay.
sure?
I'm not sure, but I believe that to be the case.
Okay. I just noticed it says 53. Did you say 50? It says 53 on here, I'm just asking.
So I'm saying 5-0, and we've got a footprint that includes interior common space. So they put 53 on this, but we're saying a 50-unit development. There's gonna be an exercise room, a public gathering room, that type of public space.
They're like 2 bedrooms or 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3?
So for the most part, there will be 2-bedroom units.
Oh, go ahead.
We need to see a site section with the building and its relationship to the adjoining, to the neighboring homes. In looking at what appear to be the contour lines, your first floor slab is, I mean, what is the interval of those contour lines?
So it's an interesting site. As you pull in, your high point is along the road up top. There's approximately
So it slopes towards the
a
home?
20-foot grade change.
From?
So from the road down to the lower end of the site where this building is. So where you see these parking levels, we will be able to step the parking down, so as you pull in on the road, you're gonna be looking over parking. It's not like you're driving into a stop and shop parking lot, right?
Okay, I'm trying to, that's why the site section, a site section east to west
Anything
with the building would be necessary. What I'm wondering is the difference in grade elevation between these houses. If it's a 2-story, so we're looking at 25 feet above grade down here, and then your 50-foot structure sits 10, 15, 20 feet higher. So now the difference is, it's late and my math's not too good.
Sure.
Yes.
But you're going to be quite a bit higher than the trees. And shadow, midday to late day shadows that will be cast on those smaller buildings should be studied. And so I certainly, I'm all for the project, but I think, my concern that I want to express to you, Mr. Fay, is that it might be too close to the other structures. There might be other ways to look at it, but in particular, why a site section would be important is because your house, your building is here, and the others are here, really. So it doesn't come across as well on a 2D, on the site plan. So please, we should look at the site and the shadow studies that would affect these homes from noontime on.
Sure.
Which right now, they don't have the shadows imposed on them. So if you could do that, please.
We can. I think our objective this evening is the concept of apartments versus housing, the concept of mixing the use, the concept of really relocating this road and adding, by pulling the road in, we have the ability to add 3 additional duplex units, concept of rotary and traffic direction, and how we look to move towards the preliminary side, addressing all of the additional issues as to the building.
Quick question. On the top, on your old plan, you had 2 separate units there. Were you combining them, make another duplex? You got your 2 duplexes coming up the middle, the new ones.
Away from the green, so we kind of
The one to the left.
go left, we can do the crossing, so there'll be some iterations.
Those are 2.
I think we just removed them
Okay.
a bit, so,
Yeah, so what happened was when we went out there, that one home is kind of right behind the green.
Yeah.
So what happens is, as when we come in to kind of detail that, we're kind of saying, all right, if we can shift the house over, put the path through, this way when you're hitting a golf ball over to that green now, looking right at a house. So there'll be some modifications to that.
Okay.
not changing the density, but kind of shifting, you know, you see in the cart path is kind of what shifts over to say, all right, let's put the cart path behind the green versus a house. So there will be some minor modifications to that.
What is the surface area increase of the asphalt from what exists now to what's proposed? It looks like you're increasing this 150% to me.
We are paving the clubhouse parking lot, which is currently a dirt parking. We are adding paved landscape parking to the pavilion building that will allow our patrons to access it conveniently. Right now, they park down that paved slope. So the pavement calculation with respect to the apartment complex is roughly comparable, because that whole area is paved now, and the pavilion patrons park there. We're adding pavement by the pavilion building, and we're absolutely paving the parking lot at the clubhouse. It's a dirt parking lot now. So yes, we're increasing the impervious surface.
So I had a discussion with the owner of this condo that backs up here. I haven't talked to anyone on Onset Ave, but they've made general observations during rain events, right? That there's a migration of water to the back there. So I think it's important to talk to these abutters to see what their concerns are. Emmanuel's comments on the shading issues, I think, are important as well. I personally think the mixed use is very favorable here. I think that I am curious on what the anticipated demographics are for these apartments. Are these 55 and older, retired golf fanatics? Don't tell us you're moving in 150 kids.
We're looking for older golf fanatics across the entire property that enjoy a nice sandwich and a cold beer. That's our demographic. It's not age restricted, but it is, the entire development has this feel for that type of atmosphere.
I think that's real important in this decision because, you know, our resources are stretched to the max right now to 50 units here. The other side of town wants to put in 175. Now we need to start looking at all of these additions that are coming into the community. But to know this one is reserved for a community that's not going to task the school systems would be favorable as well. This is considered phase 3, I think, I remember.
So I would say this now would become phase 4.
Okay.
We have 3 phases that were part of the prior approval. So we'll call this phase 4 for the lack of a better description.
So this is the priority phase right now?
Phase 1 would be the priority phase, which we will be starting sooner rather than later, and that's the part of the development that is 28 units that moves up towards
Cahoon Road?
Cahoon Road, right, and up towards the condos around the 7th Green.
Okay.
How about the entrance going in there? You're gonna construct that first?
So we're looking to
Because you're moving it.
first acquire the property from Cedar, get this in approval fashion. We will start at, right across from the clubhouse at station 13 and a half, and do those 28 units first. So that's where the tree clearing, the road improvements, the sidewalks, the streetscapes, they will happen from that station 13 and a half up towards the condos. This will not, so when we say phases 1, 2, 3, 4, they're not necessarily consecutive. As soon as this is organized and we know exactly what we're doing, that's our front door. We want to get to the entrance side of this sooner rather than later. But we will start at station 13 and a half, and that first 28 unit section is where we will be beginning to market and sell units and construct.
what I'm getting at is, see the road entrance has moved quite a bit, John.
Yeah, no, after I looked at it,
Yeah.
I see that.
So when are you gonna come down and get the road done, the entrance that goes up to the back?
Well, we currently have a road in place, so one of the
So you're gonna
great
use the
things
road in
about-
place now, and you're gonna come and put the other road in later on?
Yeah, so one of the wonderful things about this plan is we will be able to build this entire new road while we're using the existing road. So the inconvenience is gonna be minimal. We'll literally be able to, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, close this and start using that. So it's a real plus.
So I believe one of my comments last time you were here, I think the overall, it's just, I think it's wonderfully thought out. I think that it's good for the community if we can make it all happen. But just like the last folks that were in front of us, really need to look at what current proposals are there and then what the end product is 3 years down the road when everything is built out. My only reservations with this on all these different phases was, I know improvements are not being requested of Cahoon Road to kind of discourage folks from moving in that direction. And the other comment was, to the left of this ends with a cul-de-sac. So when X number of units are actually in place, when the apartment building with 50-plus units are in place, when the final road systems are in, I would just encourage you to put in some type of mechanism that now the new residents of the entire development have some say in what happens with Cahoon Road and what happens with this cul-de-sac. See, it makes sense to you as developers right now, to the community that's there, but the circumstance changes once we've added another 400 or 500 people into this equation here. So I don't want to see the funds, evaporate that says, make improvements to this end of Cahoon Road. We really feel this was a better outcome than where we are. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I don't follow where you're talking about on Cahoon Road. We're rebuilding Cahoon Road. We're rebuilding the road in its entirety. We're ripping it up. We're putting in a new road, sidewalks, streetlights, all the way up to the end of our property.
So I believe this shadowed part is existing, right? And we're adding all of this bright work of new duplexes.
The shadow work is us doing new road work on
Okay.
Cahoon.
He means the villages.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You mean the villages, yeah, the villages
The
are
villages,
existing.
right? So, I mean, what was expressed by the folks that were in the audience here when we were talking about this end months back, right? They're concerned about the increased volume that now comes with all these new units.
So I think if your finger were to continue and then keep doing this, no, way off our property, all the way back out onto Onset Ave, that was the neighborhood of Cahoon Road
Okay.
that people were talking about. And we don't have any plan to do anything with any of that stretch of road. That was the group that was talking about it, talking back to 1984 when certain things were going on, but we're not making any improvements to that road. Our road is being reconstructed in its entirety, sidewalks, streetlights, and it stops at the end of that shaded area. The balance of Cahoon Road, and actually you can see it off to the right where those house lots are, right at the top of where the colored plan ends, that gray area, that all comes back out to Onset Ave, if you were kind of to draw a straight line across the bottom of that plan. And that's the section of Cahoon Road people were talking about.
Good.
Great.
You guys are making good progress on my end. I think it's.
We're excited. We're gonna get going sooner rather than later. We got
Just to-
5,
to,
no,
accept the
it's
pre-application.
days away now. We've got some
Ask them
great
to
house
make an
plans
application.
that we're gonna launch.
Preliminary plan.
And this is gonna be a major investment and a major improvement to the property that we acquired 5 years ago. We're excited to get going.
And we'll be sure to talk to the abutters.
And we'll talk to
That's
the
super
abutters.
important to me. is
I understand that.
These guys are not in the dark on what's going on.
All set, Mark?
Yes, sir.
The next move, I think, is we need a motion to accept
I would make a motion to accept this concept and have them move forward with it. I like it. I think it's gonna be a good project overall. Little caveat, the apartment thing, the four-story part bothers me, but very workable.
I second it, but may I comment?
Sure.
That the final location of the building is not agreed to, is not
Okay.
accepted.
The concept is fine.
It's concept, yeah.
That's my motion, Mr. Chairman, accept the concept to move forward.
Motion been made and seconded by Emmanuel. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. We look forward to being back in front of you, addressing all of your concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, they're gonna get in touch with you,
Yes.
or they will, Mr. Fay will, when he gets his application together.
What is your schedule for getting the application together?
We are racing, so, Chris, it's inside of the meeting after next. We would hope to be back with some answers and preliminary start for the application and getting going on the preliminary.
Just so you're aware, there are a couple of town meetings coming up in the next couple of months that cut into the schedule of the planning board
Okay?
for the most part. And,
We'll watch the
and we do
calendar.
need some time to do the public notice
Okay.
for the hearing.
Okay, so,
60 days.
pardon?
Yeah, we need 60 days probably.
So we would say 60 days then, to get you the package you need with the appropriate notice and back in.
Sounds good.
Great. All right, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You all set?
Yeah.
What about the, Woodland Quarter Properties 40B?
That 40B, we talked a little bit about it before. That'll be a referral that you'll make to the zoning board of appeals. They are opening the hearing this Wednesday, and we'll have time to review and make recommendations. What I'll do is I'll send around the 40B handbook so you can have it. We also recorded a presentation by a consulting lawyer that we hired under a grant,
Who's that?
Paul Haverty.
Very little influence we can have on that. What did Janet send out earlier? Is that in this packet? The zoning board letter?
That was the letter from the Board of Selectmen.
From the Board of Selectmen, right, from Peter to the zoning board
Right,
for Wednesday's meeting.
right, which was
So that's
requested.
an email you would've got late today, gentlemen.
Late today, I shall.
Late, like 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Right.
Motion on the table to adjourn.
Second.
All right?
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Hey, a closing
You had a long-
statement, I gotta, listen.
you had a
excuse
long-
me.